Hello and welcome back to the Irrational Passions podcast, Irrational Passions editorial game of the year, not podcast. I'm Alex O'Neill. Joining me right now in the room virtually is Logan Wilkinson.
Hey, hi, hello.
Quentin Hoffman.
Well, howdy.
Mike Burgess.
I'm virtual.
Scott White.
Oh, hey.
And George Cruz Alvarez.
Program and control your minds to this podcast, which is what Pac-Man stands for. Video games.
Is anyone else seeing Logan's video, by the way? Because I just
No,
have no icon.
it's not there now. Things are happening behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Okay, I just wanted to make
Logan
sure.
gave up on us.
Logan is fully naked.
I mean,
For
we
audio
talked a lot
yeah.
about underwear earlier, so I had to just
It's
kind of
all-
compensate for that.
Yeah, it's the only way he can do the rest of this podcast.
Yeah.
and I get it. I get it.
I dig
It's
it.
fair. Now, real quick, we're about to resume our deliberations with 2 more categories and plenty of spoilers. Don't take it personally. There might be
D3.
spoilers. Everybody chill.
There's gonna be lots.
Those are your 3 rules if you are just tuning in. If you jumped in on day 3 for some reason.
That was stupid of you.
Which, to be fair, I jumped into Giant Bomb's Game of the Year content on day 2, so here we are. If the 7 members of the Irrational Passions editorial team were the 7 deadly sins,
Ooh,
who would be who?
ooh. So somebody Google the 7 deadly sins
I mean-
immediately.
I
so
mean,
we all.
I mean, I guess Jared is Wrath.
You're probably gonna get an anime now if you Google.
I was
going
going
to
to say, Mike, you might be Wrath.
Am I?
feel
Am
like
I?
You are
get the
pretty
most-
spicy. You get the
get the
most spicy.
I don't know if he gets the most spicy, but he definitely gets
That's
spicy. I think Jared is not a terrible guess for Wrath.
Um,
But also, Sloth. Who would be Sloth is the question.
me for sure, guys.
You're Sloth?
Pride,
You guys need edits done on that? I'll get to you next
Gluttony.
month.
Wrath, and Sloth.
Who's Greed? I think
Also-
it's point.
I think I'm Pride.
One of them is Lust, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a Wikipedia article with 8 deadly sins, and I'm very...
I mean, this,
Immediately problematic.
Did you
welcome
actually
to
get
our
the
Game
anime
of the Year-
first?
Welcome to our Game of the Year.
Who's the most lustful?
category
It's
for
gotta be
ranking
Jared or me,
deadly
right?
sins?
I feel like
Best
George
deadly
or
sins of
Jared-
2018.
Yeah.
Is the most
lustful.
lustful?
Yeah.
Oh,
I want
Jared,
to
George
imagine
out here being called
George is a
lustful.
very free sexual being.
Hell yeah, George.
I guess
yeah.
I would be Sorrow. Never mind.
That's another deadly sin that I've heard of before. That's gotta be like
Alex,
the 8th bullshit
What
one.
page are you on?
I'm on the Wikipedia page, and it
Check
says there are 8 sins.
All right. Like,
Y'all, I don't know what kind of sin vainglory is. But
my favorite
Let's see
sin
the
is
top.
ranking games in a category.
Yeah. Yep.
I just wanted to start off with a little bit of fun, some hijinks.
If you go to deadlysins.com, it says there's only 7. So I don't know.
DeadlySins.com sounds like
Yeah.
a pornographic
Website I will
website.
never visit in my
I'm going to
entire
Deadly-
life.
I'm going to
And
Deadly Sins after
DeadlySins.xxx.
this, if you know what I mean. Hey.
Envy, gluttony, lust, anger, greed, and sloth.
Where is anal on that list?
Oh boy, this is
Fucking
bad.
bad.
This is bad. I apologize, listener.
Yeah, I'm cutting this
Today,
out. Don't worry. I'm cutting
we
this
will
out.
be-
That would be lust, I imagine. I imagine that would be.
Narrowing down to 2 runners-up and 1 winner. Best style and best use of world building. So best style, which is what we're starting off with. It's a giant bomb category. I think this is the most lifted of their thing, but it's a
So-
category I think all
right.
of us have a little bit of an affinity
So
for.
that would be technically best star.
Best
Yes.
with like 12 more
Giant bomb.
Ys.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you want to say, Quinn?
I was asking if that's a giant bomb thing because
Yeah.
They just said to say style.
Like
that.
basically, it derived from they wanted to like split like games with like a unique style and games that are just like technically very like good looking.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like we're just kind of basing on how technically good this
I
looks.
believe this was the year 2012. Hotline Miami, like Gunpoint, and like some
Right.
other stuff came out.
Mhm.
Gunpoint's a good game.
Gunpoint's a dope game.
The Gunpoint Rope-a-Dope, a famous giant.
Yeah,
this
the
is just Giant Bomb
Rope-a-Dope.
Fancast.
Never forget. So what I wrote here for the description of best style is most unique or captivating style of a game, highlighting its unique nature. I almost said narrative for some reason. Its difference from any contemporaries and its execution on said uniqueness. So what I wanted to emphasize here is that it is more. It stands out, right? It is not something that you've really seen somewhere else.
Mhm.
And not only does it stand out today versus like previous entries, but to contemporaries as well. So like other things that we might have seen this year that tried to do something similar, and also how well it executes on that. I think there is like a commitment to style here that definitely earns you points. And I think the ones that go above and beyond in their unique style and look and feel, from music to art to everything, I think definitely it serves it better, and I think it should stand out more in this category because of that. Does anyone have any beef with that description?
I like it.
So right now in best style, we have The Gardens Between, Donut County, Gorogoa, God of War, Return of the Obra Dinn, Greece, Florence, Forza Horizon 4, Tetris Effect, Octopath Traveler, Minute, Just Shapes and Beats, Omen Sight, A Way Out, Bloodstain Ritual of the Night, Persona Dancing Moon Knight and Dancing Star Knight, which I guess for the purposes of this we are contending as one game versus two.
I mean, Persona 3 is more stylish. So,
And it's Dancing in Moonlight and Dancing in Starlight.
Dragon Ball Fighters, The Haunted Island, a frog detective game, which I've literally never heard of until this moment. Is there anything missing from this list before we get into this?
This is also like pretty much like stuff that we played, listener. So like, there's probably a cool looking game that we saw, but we probably didn't play it, so it's not on here. Like, except like I mentioned in our Slack, like Bad North is a stylish game, but I didn't play Bad North. Like Jarrett Green is not here, and this is not gonna play.
Ashen or below.
Yeah, I think we should just put those December games. I don't know. It's so weird because
I feel like it's right now is we can call them out and be like, yeah, those are cool, but I don't.
Yeah,
I would nominate them for 2019.
And I wouldn't even say they would hang with some of the games that we have on here. Like, and the same with like I was gonna bring up quickly, Iconoclast. Like, I think that game is super like stylish. It has a lot of like the
animation's fantastic.
Yeah, the animations on all the characters, some of the pixel art and work is like very
stands out.
sharp and very cool. But ultimately, it is really really good pixel art. Like that's kind of all it is. And it's also like a game genre that's you saw a lot of this year in some ways. So like it kind of got lost in the mix, but it did stand out to me personally.
I want to say two things that we can put on the list, and maybe we can come back to them later. I think Below should be on the list. I think we should talk about it.
Okay.
I know I'm the only one here that's put any significant amount of time into it.
I also played a bunch of it.
Okay, that's right. You did, Scott. I also think for now, just to be on the list, I think The Messenger should be on the list as well.
Oh yeah, that's
one
which is
definitely be on the list.
A hella stylish game.
Yeah, definitely on the Messenger.
Even in spite of the fact that it is kind of we've seen people take a crack at that style a lot.
Doesn't mean it doesn't do something special.
But yeah, I think it does some cool stuff.
So Persona 3 and Persona 5 here, very good looking video games.
Let's get that off the list.
I don't know. Like I don't want to diminish the stuff. First of all, I think that Persona 3 and Persona 5 in their own right are stylish games, but I also recognize that they did a lot of original work for these games, and I think it looks great, but it is derived of that Persona, their respective Persona game.
Yeah.
Something about that just doesn't... I'd rather reward something completely new.
Yeah.
And in terms of those games, it's like they do look good, but I wouldn't put them on... having reviewed it and spent a lot of time with these games, they look really good, but Persona 5 or Dancing in Starlight looks a lot like they reuse a lot of the things from Persona 5 in terms of this aesthetic. And even though all the character models and everything were redone for Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight, I'm right there with Jurge. It's like it looks really pretty and it's very visually stimulating, but it's...
Did they have the female protagonist from Persona 3?
No.
I believe...
All right, delete this from this list.
They might have had her edit her as a DLC track, but she was not in the original.
I want to say it is really cool to see the Persona 3 characters get that glow up.
Definitely.
Look, I want a Persona 3 remake so bad. Using those models, it was so pretty.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay.
I don't want to get like too into this immediately because I feel like this might be one some people might fight for, but like in the same way that Persona, those two dancing games are kind of like a really good distillation and like kind of maybe like recapturing of those Persona games. I feel like that same thing can be said about Dragon Ball Fighters.
I disagree with that. I
think that game
100%
is-
disagree.
I think that game is super cool, but like
Also, Scott, you're a little hot.
They
Okay.
made Dragon Ball Z like cool, and like that's that. I'm glad they did it, but that's all it is. In a way, like, they just kind of made they like recreated Dragon Ball Z and like they recreated like an original source material that was already there. That's really cool. So I don't think it doesn't really personally fit with me where this says most unique and captivating style of a game.
That's a good point,
Like,
I guess.
I don't necessarily think it's like
That's
it's
a good point.
awesome, but it's not necessarily like unique.
I'll say like there is one. I think Dragon Ball Fighters.
I'm not saying
I
we have
mean,
to delete it like right now
yeah.
because there are other things that
Sure.
get to, but like I just
That's
don't
the
think
thing,
there. I
though.
think there's I was just kind of saying like it's like it. There's a lot of other things that I think are a lot stronger on here than then there's a lot more like unique things and more standout things because of that than like a game that just did a thing that extremely well that's like already that's just like referencing like older material.
We can come back to it, but I will
Yeah.
say that if it was that easy, then Dragon Ball
Yeah.
Fighters wouldn't have been as impressive.
No,
Right.
yeah, I
Like-
definitely got some things to say about Dragon
Yeah, let's come
Ball.
back to that.
I do
was-
want to say like two quick things about Dragon Ball Fighters though. Like one, I think like I understand where you're coming from, but I think like the big thing is like it executes on something super well. Like its execution is so top notch. But like beyond that, like I think just like that is one of my favorite games to watch.
Yeah.
And I think that
Mhm.
most of that
Would
is
it-
because of how well it's executed.
Would it perhaps be on a best looking if we had that? Maybe.
I think for sure. Like I love
Yeah.
Arc System Works like
Mhm.
weird
Mhm.
2D meets 3D
Yeah,
pixel art
absolutely.
style.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I'm okay with tabling it. Like personally, I don't think it's gonna make it to the top 3, but I
Okay.
certainly see a case
I-
for it.
I'd like to at least have it
Yeah, I think
make
we
a
should keep
point
it
to
now.
at least
Yeah.
for the past
Yeah,
the
we
first cut.
we can
Mhm.
table it for now for sure.
Krillin gets blown up and then
I-
goes in Super Saiyan. So
Krillin
that's
blows up
yeah.
real good in that game.
pretty good.
Bloodstained, I don't think deserves to be on here.
Yeah.
Like it
another-
was a
it's another
really
one of those.
cool,
It-
like retro version.
Man.
Yeah, like
Should
in
Time
Time Spinner be
it-
on this list?
yeah, right. Yeah, seriously, they just made a cool Castlevania game.
Yeah,
But yeah, that is ultimately what this is. They kind of just made Castlevania 3
Yeah.
in some ways, and
with
like
new
that's cool.
sprites, with
Yeah,
some
like,
new character sprites.
yeah, it has new character sprites and
hmm
other stuff, but it is clearly riffing on those games. It is not like
Castlevania 3, a good video game.
Wait,
Yes.
isn't Ritual of the Night the one that hasn't released yet?
Yeah.
no. Oh yeah. I think you are right. Ritual of the
Yeah, Ritual of the Night's one that hasn't
this
released
one,
yet.
this yeah.
Curse of the-
yeah.
Curse of
the
Blood? I
Curse
said-
of
It's
something.
Curse of the Moon.
Curse
I
of the
think.
Moon, yes. So Bloodstained, the game we couldn't get the name wrong right of.
Yeah, so we should probably
also
just,
yeah.
I'll
that
just-
actually, would,
said,
that actually really be funny if it did make it to the top 3 and we just thought it was that game built.
I want to give a shout out to Time Spinner for looking
Yes.
the most
Yeah.
Symphony of the Night.
Very
The most
impressive.
like, I don't know if I need to play Bloodstained Ritual of the Night anymore. I'll just play Time Spinner.
Time
Yeah,
Spinner's
Time
really
Spinner
cool.
seems dope.
I hear
I
it's short
played it.
though. I hear it's pretty short.
You can blaze through it pretty quick because it's pretty simple, but there is also like with
Ups-
like Symphony of the Night, it's not as like elaborate, but there is like some post game, quote unquote post game, like true ending type stuff you can get into in that game that like adds some more to it. I played through all of it. It's pretty cool. It's when you look at it and go like, hey, that looks like a cool Castlevania. That basically looks like a dope ass
Mhm.
Castlevania game. It's pretty much that. It nails a lot of its aspects perfectly, but it's also still like its own thing. It tells its own
Mhm.
story, and like it's and obviously you're not using like whips and swords and stuff. You have like spears. She shoots out and stuff. It's cool.
Oof, guys, I don't know where to go next now.
Forza.
Um,
Okay.
Here we go, George.
I don't know about that one.
For
so-
style though.
Forza's great.
This is maybe again if we had a best looking category.
Yeah.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
top 3.
Mhm.
I think the way Forza captures like the European, like just like a nice European farm place that you're just driving around is fucking incredible. Like even like the physics on like the stone walls and how you crash through them and stuff, and just like the way the seasons affect it. I will probably save a lot of this for maybe a category later. But I agree with you that it has some style.
I really like the
I mean,
UI
I would-
of
Yeah. It's got some
I would
style.
also argue that like the actual definition of the category too, right, where it's like its unique nature and it's different to many contemporaries, and more to the point, like its execution on that uniqueness. Like Forza nails that stuff, nails the kind of the unique nature of how like it is. That game is gorgeous.
It's
It
a
is-
culmination.
gorgeous
Oh, does
game.
it? My main issue with, I guess, Forza Horizon 4 is Forza's Horizon's like contemporaries are other Forza games.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
sure,
think that's- I think Gran Turismo is.
And I would say this is the best.
I think if we were,
real.
I think
be
like if you're
real.
talking maybe like PS3 360 era when Gran Turismo, I mean,
Yeah.
is
Remember
it?
that time you went to the moon? That was
So the
cool.
crew
Yeah.
too is Forza's.
Yeah, but like even like
Yeah.
it's better than
Need
yeah.
for Speed Payback is a Forza 4 contemporary.
Now,
Come on,
can we
that's
put
my
a
point, like,
remastered
It's
on?
blasted all of its other competition out. Like it's just
Yes, totally.
so
Yeah.
far and above any other kind of competitor.
I
to
will
it.
take it off with me feeling good by it by saying if it was the best looking.
Yeah,
I think.
no,
it would
I
be.
agree. If
Yeah.
this was like a visual only category, there is
Yeah, like
no doubt that
technical-
Forza
That game runs at
has.
60 FPS on an Xbox One X.
I mean, argue
Forza
yeah,
would
if it's best
win.
Looking, that's good for best. Yeah, best.
Yeah, it
win,
looks
yeah.
fucking incredible. Yeah. I downloaded that just to like I wanted to see what
Look
that
at it,
game
yeah.
looks like in motion, and it is every bit you want it to look. It is that good. All right, so I like let's start laying on swords real quick. I get that we seen Res before. Like I know Tetris Effect isn't fucking treading new water here. I think it does a very cool job at what it does.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there is someone who might like be so reductive as to say it looks a lot like a visualizer. I'm sure that exists. I understand that.
Jason's
And
my
also-
guy.
I also understand that it rubs people the wrong way. I think
Sorry.
it also like there is some fairness in it in saying that like a lot of what Tetris Effect is doing visually detracts from it mechanically. I disagree
I
personally.
disagree with that.
I disagree.
But I don't think, as far as like highlighting the most unique games on here, like there are games on here that there is literally nothing else like it out there that I would rather put on the top three personally.
Yeah.
I feel fine
I
about letting
see.
Tetris Effects go in that regard. How do
Yeah,
you
I
I
feel,
think
George?
Tetris Effect visually though
I
is
mean,
incredible.
yeah,
I have a
I mean,
Make
hard
that point as
time
clear as
letting.
possible.
I mean, like,
Tetris Effect for me is a
style.
top 3 on this list. Yeah.
Yeah, it is top 3 in my heart, but like there are things like if you want me to just kind of start throwing out the things that I kind of saw on this list, just to give you like a little bit of a point of reference, right? Like something like Gorogoa I think should be on this list, or Greece,
That's what I
or
was thinking.
even like Octopath. Like I know it's not favored by some of us, but like that game looks so cool. Minutes, like there are a lot of things like I just look at and I'm like, I've never fucking seen this before.
Has anyone here actually played Minute? I just put it on there because I thought
I
of
was
it.
gonna ask that. Like,
Yeah, I don't know
I've
if
not
anyone
played
here
that.
has a horse. I think it was
I don't
cool.
think we have any, but yeah, like it looks
Yeah.
cool, and I might play it eventually when it goes on a good sale. But like,
We might have to let it go on a technicality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
go, 'cause
Yeah,
I've
Minute
played
goes.
it, and
Okay.
like, yeah, I mean,
because Minute seems really cool.
It does seem cool, but
yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you are the biggest stand for Tetris Effect, Alex. So like, if you're the one that's kind of going cut it, like, because like,
I would say
I think
Tetris
to me,
Effect should
like-
make it to the next stage
We
at
can-
least.
yeah, we can-
like
yeah, we,
not
we don't have to
initial.
cut it right now. Yeah, either because I was gonna say like honestly like there are 2 games on here personally that I will very much gun for to be on the top 3, and I thought like Tetris would have easily been like a third, even as like
Yeah.
somebody who's not like super like it did not grab me as much.
Yeah,
as
I
it
love
did
it.
other things
And I love the
because
the
you
style
know,
of
of the
Tetris
other
Effect.
plenty of other reasons, But
I mean, that's great to hear. Like obviously, I fucking love it, and I love its
I
style.
mean, yeah,
I just like
'cause-
for me, like there are things I definitely favor things I've never seen before
Yeah.
in regards
No,
to style.
I
Mhm.
also agree with that aspect of it too. Of like the again going back to like the most unique and captivating style of a game. like the points you made about Tetris are accurate. Like I like it in some ways because I like Lumines and all the stuff Mizuguchi has done in the past, but it is ultimately like it is kind of like a an evolution of those and in many aspects. So it is kind of like it is more like a defining or like chiseling down this like thing that he has been doing for many years.
It is more derivative than it is not in many of its like most unique aspects, and that just kind of that's like it's very technical in regards to like us narrowing down this category, but it's what I'm thinking about, right? Like
Totally.
I don't necessarily want every award to go to the thing that I like the most in the category. I want it to go to a game that I feel like we should reward for being so fucking dope, and that's what best style is all about in my heart. So I'm just coming at it from that perspective. I don't want anybody here to think that I don't absolutely adore Tetris Effect's style. Heaven forbid, like Logan, you read the thing I wrote about Tetris Effect that people will be able to read by the time this is out. Like I fucking love that game. I'm just, that is my point of view, and I'm gonna come at it from that perspective.
Does Way Out need to be on this list?
No, let's get rid of it.
Nope.
And again, like Way Out, I think its style is probably one of the better aspects of that game, but like absolutely does not. It's top 3. It's a cool looking game, but it's not top 3 on this list. But it is a cool looking game.
It's 1970s, right?
Like it's 1970s, like throwback inspired.
And I would say more so the style of it is like that co-op, like shifting camera angles and like
that was cool.
Like that is cool. Like I kind of like thought back about it, and I regretted not bringing it back up in best. I didn't bring it up necessarily in best design level because it was more like a sequence, but that like hospital
scene,
where it's like transitioning between like your perspectives and like who's playing and like the camera angles. It was like actually like legitimately fucking cool.
It is cool.
It was really
it's a really cool mechanic that I would love to see be in a better game.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So yeah, we can cut it from there.
Shout out to you, Joseph Ferris, wherever you are.
Yeah, watch the post credits of shout out to Joseph Ferris in our post credits of A Way Out.
Let's play, go watch it if you haven't already.
Another one which like I think I'm still the only one who's played this and I'm okay with cutting it is Omen Sight. Omen Sight I think is super cool and super stylish, but I think it is also kind of like a kind of throwback style, like in that it's like, hey, we know you all love those like PlayStation 2 fucking awesome action like adventure like character action games, and it is totally just trying to be like a indie modern version of that, and it blends it. It's super cool. All the characters look cool. It's like kind of like half cell shaded. There's a lot of really cool like particle effects and musical swells and all kinds of stuff in it, but ultimately it is basically like a very good like one of like modernization of those.
Yes, I think Omen Sight is really cool though.
Yes, it is super cool.
It will come up tomorrow in the kind of category, the games you might have overlooked for sure. I think
absolutely.
It's a cool game. It's worth your time if you haven't looked into it at all. I'm gonna say this right here, right now. I feel very strong about Greece in this category.
Hell yes.
We
Greece
can
is a
just
lock for me.
Yeah, we can bump that up and talk about it later if y'all want. But I feel real strong about Greece in this category.
I've seen Belladonna of Sadness. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
I think like there is totally that. Oh, this is like an indie art house short film.
Yes, totally.
Thing that you could say, but I've never seen that done in a video game. And it's very good.
And like the way it uses all of that stuff to like also like tell this message is like I've not seen anything like that in the game this year.
I played Greece last night for reference, so like it is very fresh for me.
I played it a few weeks ago and it is still stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a powerful game.
Yes,
I think
extremely.
I feel like we could probably ditch God of War.
How long is Greece as an aside, real quick?
It's like 4 hours at most.
That's not
maybe
bad.
3.5. It's not
I'm
bad.
looking at that this weekend.
It's
maybe.
not. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, you, Logan, Quin, the two of you should play it.
Private Coalition Unite.
Yeah, dude, I was like crying at the end of that. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm crying about. I mean, it kind of came together for me.
It's very powerful in the way.
Yeah, there's
delivers
like
a lot of stuff, but it does it in like such a just like simplistic and just it's all visual and it's just like it's
not a word
awesome.
is said in that
Not
game.
not a word is said in that game,
And it's
it still conveys its message like very well.
awesome. Yes,
It's awesome.
Oh, it's so
I'm gonna just cut the Gardens Between.
okay.
It's it's my only horse, and I don't think it's gonna make it far.
Mm-hmm.
Gardens Between has a beautiful art style.
It is
That game is
right,
really
and it's
good looking.
pastel-y, and I really I love it, and
It's
I
very
think,
nice.
I think honestly, it's probably one of the more unique games I've played this year because how its time travel mechanic works.
The mechanics too.
Like it's unique in its aesthetic and its mechanics, and that's something which
Visually beautiful. Yeah.
and I think that's what does it such a great service. It does not have a horse in this race because there's games like Tetris Effect, Obra Dinn,
We haven't
and the
got
Messenger,
Over
which
Dinn yet.
basically like are all more
Y'all aren't gonna like me when we
do
get to
more
this.
cooler things instead of just time travel and cool.
Mike
colors.
Loki already talking shit under his breath
like-
there.
like-
I
like
said
a crazy old man.
you aren't gonna like me when if somebody tries to take over Dan. That's all I'm gonna
I
say.
feel like no
Doesn't
one's
say
coming at
I'm pulling out
Oberdin.
some
Yeah,
auto here.
It's all locked.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, Oberdin is.
So are we
also
just
a
fighting
lock
for
me.
one spot?
I mean, here's the
For
thing.
me personally, yes, but I mean, I'm obviously we're a group, so
We should talk about God of War because we kind of glazed over it. But like,
Yeah.
for me, like
I think
looking. One sec. We'll get to God of War because I know where you're coming from with it, Logan.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know. There are 3 games on this list that I think are the most unique games that came out this year, and that's Gorogoa, Oberdin, and Greece. I don't know if we're gonna have another 3 personally. That obviously we haven't talked it through, but like those 3 games look fucking wild. If you've never seen them, like any frame of Gorogoa you can pick out and be like, what the fuck is this game? Especially if you see that game in motion, it is crazy.
There's like a second of profound like, what just happened?
Yeah, it is very much like Galaxy Brain take the video game. Oberdin, obviously, like I think you can look at any screenshot of that game and be like, this game seems wild.
and there's like so much more to that. Like that game, is literally the definition of this category. It is like the most unique in its style. It executes on it like perfectly and like so like it's so perfect. I can't even it's like hard to even just like you have to see it in action of just like how it uses that weird kind of monochromatic like you just see it kind of like in those screenshots and it's like, wow, that's really cool. But then it's like even layered on top of like you're given a journal, and in that journal are like drawings that are like I'm sure there's like a particular like very old like 1800s kind of character drawings in these, and like they use that monochromatic and like in conjunction with those drawings, and it like all works because you're like seeing the characters that you're trying to pinpoint out in these murders in that drawing. That's the only way you see them at first, and then you start getting to these like diorama murder scenes, and like the characters are just like these weird kind of polygonal masks, but you can immediately kind of like pinpoint out these characters in the game and like with these drawings in these books, and it's just used, and it's just like they perfectly mesh in a way I've like never seen when it's so unique just to, like on the outright. And they use like music in an incredible way where like you'll like like in a way that like Zelda does, like when you obviously like Zelda has that iconic like you open a chest and you get the like you got that like iconic memorable thing. Like Oberdin has like musical swells in it that like almost like are on that same level of like memory for me of like I will immediately be able to pick these out from these moments in Oberdin because I know like when this scene happened because of this music that in the scene was playing, like when I solved the thing, I knew like the click that like it immediately just all worked, and like all of it is just like it's an incredible package that's just everything is so unique, but it's all executed on like perfectly, and it's awesome.
How you feel about Oberdin is kind of how I feel about Greece. So I'm totally with you. Like,
with that being said, I feel better about cutting Dragon Ball Fighters now.
like Scott, I want to know. Like, I want to hear you gush about this game, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess what blew me away from the moment they unveiled it in terms of style is like we've seen Dragon Ball games before. We've seen Akira Toriyama's drawings in 3D before, but it was something the crazy dark magic from Arc System, the people over there, and the attention to detail in capturing the models, the stances, all the animations, like going back to the show, the manga, everything, and so perfectly nailing facial expressions and just poses and all the little details and things that were in it. It was like playing the anime. Like it's the closest I've ever seen to a game that looked and played in like every single moment looked like the anime. And I think the difference from it's clear. I think where it stands apart is the difference from any contemporaries out there. Like I remember the whole thing with, I guess like maybe not as much against Guilty Gear XR because it's the same engine and the same idea,
Right.
But just with the attention to detail and everything from Dragon Ball Fighters, I think that's what really impressed me and the best style. But with like what you guys were saying with like Jurge was saying earlier, like I would probably fight a lot harder for this game if this was a best looking category as opposed to style. But
let me tell you about the style of Vegeta's Batman shirt.
Fuck yeah,
very
dude!
stylish.
It's
Mondo
real
cool.
good. I like.
And I'm, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say, like, I personally am like really overdoing like the best visuals technical like kind of category because I think you get into those kinds of arbitrary arguments about like what water looks better than what other water or whatever.
Sea
Like
of Thieves.
yeah, like Sea of Thieves like looks great, but like I don't give a shit about that game. So I don't necessarily want to be booning that in a best visuals technical category for one thing, but like be undercutting something that I think looks really good personally. Like this all stems from like, let me tell you all I got about, I think it was 2015 when it was Ori and the Blind Forest versus Bloodborne, and I lost that fight and I was super upset about it. But like, I don't know, they're both great looking games. It's just like one spoke to me personally because of its style. And I like highlighting that personally.
I think with Dragon Ball Fighters, it doesn't necessarily, I guess, belong on this category. Like I'm fine cutting it because Dragon Ball Fighters is like the epitome and best example of a style being done in a video game. 100%. It's not a video game doing a unique style.
It's like that and
an interpretation.
Like South Park, the Stick of Truth.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think it does belong on this list. I think there are just a lot of games with a very good style this year.
Yeah.
If I agree. Like from what I've seen of Obra Dinn, it has an incredibly unique and an exciting and interesting visual style that I really want to play when it goes on sale or sometime. I definitely want to play it. Just before even all the great things Mike has said about it. Grease, from the bit I've seen of that, I think that style is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And so
I like. Go ahead, Scott.
Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball's good.
It's
Pour
good.
one out. I'm totally with you guys. Like I didn't want to seem like I was too harsh on it because I totally agree. Like if this was a best looking talk, I would be right there with you, and that should be up there. But
that father-son Kamehameha looks really good.
It looks really good. That shit when Trunks does all those hand signs looks fucking dope.
Yeah, you're just like, fuck yeah.
I'll say this, like, never mind. I was just gonna dunk on it a little bit, and
There's a really cool video though where it came out. Bit of a sidetrack, but it came out when the game's trailers or when in one of the betas, where a guy looked at how the animations and everything were done in Dragon Ball Fighters to make it look more like the anime. Highly recommend you check it out because it's an incredibly interesting watch, and it really shows just how crazy they went into doing it.
And I'll dunk on it for a split second. I think the way that it's 24 frames per second before the match starts for the intro looks lame. But
there you go.
I don't think the message.
Bitter
So
moment of the week.
Yeah, good. It's deleted.
I don't think the messages should be here now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about God of War, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, I think God of War is an incredible achievement. I mean, just visually in so many ways, but in terms of stylistically too, like I think it captures that world in a way that, yeah, you could argue it's a kind of like fill in the blank AAA open world game to some degree, but I think that open world is not just set in the background.
Yeah.
But I think that world is such a living, breathing like part of that game, like the way that it evolves and the way that kind of that main central hub area kind of changed throughout the course of the game and evolves, and constantly new things open up and are able to be explored, or just kind of you learn more about the world around you, right? Like to me, the entirety of God of War is a lot like the kind of underground segment or like tunnel segment in The Last of Us, where like it's just story, except for it's that over the entire game. It's just like this constant, like you learn more about like these side characters' arcs and stories, and like these pirate ship captains and what happened to them, and like this bitter feel between like trolls and like ogres and giants and dragons, and like you're just constantly learning more and more about it. And the way that it kind of evokes such a, I think, unique style, right? And like it takes what God of War did in the kind of mid to late 2000s, and I think expands it and evolves it, and
I think it's way better, but
and like it embeds itself into becomes such an integral part of that game. And like there are certain segments of the game, like stylistically wise, where it's just like I saw nothing better looking than that this year. And like I think in particular of the I think it was like the elf place.
Elfheim.
Yeah.
Elfheim.
yeah.
And when you like get there and like the bright like purples and pinks of that like that kind of world, when you go to like the main island hub, going into like the rippling blue waters, like it creates like this crazy like amazing imagery, and like the style of that world is so distinct, and like each one of the kind of realms you go to has such a unique look to it, a unique style to it, a unique kind of, I think, history, mythology to it. Like I mean, I think God of War does something really, really impressive. To say nothing of the fact that I think it is arguably the best looking video game ever made, certainly in that conversation. Like it is, it's gorgeous. And so
I think, like on a technical level, it is.
It's
it is.
Red Dead
right.
Redemption, probably.
That's
I don't agree to that. I don't agree to that with
I
Red
was
Dead,
gonna
but
I was gonna take it personally of like, again, I think this is that difficult like separation of
but I think that
style
it's
and best
I think
looking.
best looking and best style. I think it exceeds. I think it succeeds
I think
well
the art
in
direction is
both of those
fantastic.
categories. Yeah, right.
That's
The
not
art
gonna
direction is
hang, though.
Yeah,
great.
like,
Like,
there's-
I think the styles of the world, and I think the looks of everything. Like ultimately, God of War is not my horse in this race, but I think that God of War shouldn't just be like immediately knocked off and laughed out of the room, because
no.
God of War's style is insane and just staggering. Like the again, like I would put it on the list literally just for Elfheim, but then there are the other realms that I think each have their own look, and like I think the realm you go to at the end with the giants, you can't think of the name of it right now. Like that
Jotunheim.
realm, I love the look of Jotunheim. Thank you. Like I love
like
the look of that,
Niflheim.
like, the
Niflheim
visual
does.
style of that, and like
Yes. I was gonna say.
they're all so great, and like I think it definitely very much can stand tall in this category against any of the other games.
And I want to say, because I think it's a big part of it. Like, God of War was the first game I played on PS4 Pro, and it was the first game I played on HDR 4K TV.
Yep.
There's like use of color in that game that is like
color.
really,
Again,
really
especially
surprising.
like I think that Elves Kingdom, so many colors at once on the screen.
The Fire Kingdom has like there's like an orange I saw in that game that I've never seen anywhere else, which is pretty cool. And I think like that lends itself to the art direction, to the style, like what you're saying. Like I definitely think it has a style. Like I think unfortunately like those more, if you're going for that kind of realism style, it's just gonna play less with me than it is personally, like than it is otherwise like a more artistic style.
And I'll also say I just even like the art direction is fantastic, but I think it wouldn't hang, honestly.
I think it can in for different folks, for like in a different conversation, but
in a different year, I think it would be a shoo-in. I think there's just been a lot of really interesting games and visually different and exciting, and I mean even just visually incredibly impressive. Like I'm with you. I love the design of the world and how it grows. It I think it's fantastic. The art direction is
Amazing.
and design and the world design, all of that is fantastic, no doubt.
In particular, like the area where you're going across the giant's corpse is very, very cool.
Yeah.
Like that's like a standout for me of like, this is like a cool aesthetic. Like they took this concept and they actually executed on it well. And I think it's something we've kind of seen in God of War before. Like you think of Pandora's Temple in the first God of War, is very much like the same idea of like you're on a giant thing on a giant person, and it's like constantly reminding you of that scale. Where like they're taking that same or similar idea and executing it on this new rebooted God of War, and they do it in a very different way that is still very cool and still very like arresting in how much it is conveying.
That World Serpent looks really good.
World Serpent looks good.
World Serpent's amazing.
Dope snake.
Dope snake.
I
I
also
don't
like how like Logan mentioned, like when that central hub, like when the water comes down, you can still see like how there used to be water here, like in the markings.
Like the way the rock looks kind of still wet is really cool.
Barnacles, baby.
Barnacles.
Yeah. I honestly think that if this category was best art direction, God of War would win.
I don't think it would win, but I
think it has a bigger argument for just best art direction as opposed to style, which I still think is a little nebulous. Like, it's like what style against like visuals versus
concrete.
I think like, it is intentionally nebulous to some extent because like there should be wiggle room in what can and can't be included in this category.
Oh yeah.
But like what I mean is like uniqueness, like a thing that when you look at it, like it makes you think of that and only that, right? Yeah. Is a kind of way that it's been put before. Like in my heart of hearts, one of the all-time contenders for best style is like Persona 5, for example.
Yeah.
Because they take the visual style and extend it to UI, to character interaction, to like little pop-ups across the screen, to like loading screens have like the style.
It's integrated into everything in the game.
Yeah, so like
in some ways the game would not work without it.
Yes.
I think for me, like God of War, I mean, I think it's fair to say it can be taken off the list, but it is amazing. But I think it's important to note for me that I think one of you mentioned the fact that like they want to kind of recognize games that do like different and weird things that they haven't like kind of experiment a bit more with it. But for me, it's also think of like, but also like I think there are games in this list who like do really fucking weird things of like art style, but I think that they just look ugly. Like we're gonna get to this eventually for some of these games. But like I just think that they do really cool things, I guess, but like I just don't think it looks good. I think it's visually not stylish. And so I'd also say that like games that maybe you fall on a more traditional scale of things, but nail that, and I think are more visually. I mean, like we're gonna get to this is one of the most objective categories ultimately, which is like, does the game look good to you? But
this
like,
and music,
it'll be interesting to see how this top 3 shakes out.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I think that's when we got to start pulling a little bit more to meet in the middle, because that's tricky. I want to talk about below.
Are we gonna take it below first? Okay.
Yeah, because like below's not gonna hang, but like. And I'm glad. I totally forgot you'd played a good deal of it, Scott. So I'm glad that you have.
That is some. Let me tell you about that opening fucking segment.
Worst fucking part of the game. Worst part of the game.
It's super
Fuck
weird.
That 5 minutes.
I was sitting there like watching it because again I've played the game multiple times and it's like, what is this? I'm still trying for 4 minutes. I'm trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
But
a 5 minute long slow zoom in. And it was legit 5 minutes because I was streaming it the morning it came out. And when I finally got character, when you can finally control him, it's at the 5 minute mark.
Jurge explaining that to Jared was one of my favorite like behind the scenes looks at input ever. Like it was so Jared's reaction was so good.
But like I'll say this, like below takes like the isometric Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past look, and does something with it that like I don't think anyone has necessarily done before with that specific perspective. It's more zoomed out than most games of that ilk. and because of that, it's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on sometimes. But I think it, in spite of that, like, is just captivating. Like, I think it uses minimalism in a way that really, really works. I think that's kind of what it was pitched as from the get-go, of like very standard, very benign environments that like it brings a lot of life to in a lot of really cool, subtle ways. Like the enemy designs are really cool looking, the way your characters look and how kind of non-specific and nondescript they are, the way like you always play a different looking character every time you die and they come in on a different looking boat, but you never know what any of it means. Like, I think that's really cool. There are masks that you get in the game and equipment that like have a cool look to it. And it's a game all about making cool soups. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, I just think there is a lot about Below that is generally rad, and it very much is like very, I think you could say it's like up its own ass to some degree, but like it owns it and it wears it on its sleeve with pride, and it does a really good job of it. It is a fucking no holds barred, does not pull its punches, video game ass game. It is a roguelike true to form in a way that most modern roguelikes are not. And I think it does it's just very cool. It is a cool looking game. Is it the top 3 cool looking game? Hell no. I would probably put God of War over it, especially after the conversation we have. But I think like I'm so happy this game finally came out, and I think it does what it wants to do, and it does it pretty well.
There's a lot below its surface.
All right, I quit. This was it.
George,
Yes.
let's talk about the Haunted Island, a Frog Detective game.
Yeah, we can take off the
Talk
haunted.
about this Daniel Riendeau.
So the Haunted Island, a Frog Detective game, is a short little thing. You can find it on itch. Developed by Grace Buckner, I think is her name. You play as a frog detective who is called in to go to an island that is run by a monkey king. Not a monkey king, a sloth king. My apologies. And the sloth king said he found a ghost. And so they call the second best detective, which is a frog detective. I think the number 1 detective is a lobster. Anyways, it's really cute, and it's got that it kind of looks like Donut County, except a little bit more detail. I think it's really warm. I think it's really funny. I think the writing is so sharp and so good. It's like 25 minutes, but it makes use of those 25 minutes. Dude, you want to talk about style? When you open the game and it shows like what resolution, instead of resolution, because it just has this like plain look, it has the lyrics to the Flow Rider's Low. And I think that's pretty stylish. I think Flow Rider's apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur, the whole club was looking at her. It's pretty stylish. It's a stylish set of mindset.
So this is top 3, right?
It's a mindset.
Okay.
I think it earns points for sure. This kind of reminds me like in a late game contender, kind of like Frog Fractions was in the year of its
I think
really, as far as best surprise.
I just want to give a shout out and let folks know that if you want like a small, cheap, and cute and funny thing that certainly has a swagger. It certainly has like it carries itself. It's confident. Like it knows it's cute and funny, but it's not obnoxious. I just wanted to give that game a shout out, but it can go.
I am curious about this game. I just hadn't heard of it until now, so I will certainly check it out.
Let's talk about Donut County.
Let's talk about Donut County.
George, do you want me to sound off on this, or do you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Donut County might be one of the most stylish games in the
Very
game.
stylish.
Donut County is one that like is on the table as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to say like, hey, let's get rid of Donut County. Like, I like Donut County's look a whole lot.
It's
I
beautiful.
think it's settled with me that we're debating that we've chosen our 3 and we're just saying our goodbyes. But
I definitely do not think we've chosen our 3. I definitively do not agree to that. There will
I want to
definitely be
keep talking about
3.
it.
Quinn, talk about Donut County.
Donut County has this beautiful, bright, colorful style in like the overworld, and its mechanic is just you're a hole, and you move items down the hole, and the hole expands. And its music is done. it's integrated so well that it's like
Music is very stylish.
it's extremely stylish, and we've already talked about how great the soundtrack is.
Mhm.
Scott, to quote Scott White, he said it's coffee shop music,
Yeah.
and it's great because it goes along with the task because the task is so easy and kind of mindless, and like the music is so bright and colorful. Then, like I already said, you have this overworld like up top, then you go 999 feet below, and it's like it's all gray and there's not a lot of color. I think that's part of the style of this game.
It's the way it presents its story. It's the way the characters talk to each other that is presented through the style because it's through the text and through the way they talk. Like the way that it's written, like it has a swagger in those words, the way it carries itself.
Mhm.
And I
This
think
is a
like,
game with swagger. That is my
Mhm.
takeaway from all I've seen of Donut
the
County. I think
Trashopedia is really stylish, dude.
Oh, so good.
The Dark Souls boss when you die and then you have that scene with the extra life or the extra man, like it's really cool. I think it's really stylish, but I think for the
I think it stays.
I think we can revisit this game.
Yeah.
okay.
And I think, and to say something else, how you get to levels is so fun because it's basically unraveling what's happening and how all these people got here. And it's all like like there's a little blurb of like or not a pelican, but like a bird, and you go to that farm, or like a frog, and you go to like his lake house, or you like it's a chef's place, and all this. It's all so. It's written so it's like it follows kind of like a wave, and you see the effects, and it's a really smart game, honestly.
Mhm.
I do. Let's talk about Scott. How do you feel about Just Shapes and Beats?
I like it was visually exciting, but its visual, I guess, simplistic style it had. Like I like the idea where everything was just geometric shapes, and you fought a evil possessed circle who ate a Dorito that made him angry or something. But I feel like Tetris was more impressive stylistically than Just Shapes and Beats.
Yeah, I wish I would have played it. That seems like a very George game.
It's a cool game.
It's an
Yeah.
extremely George game. Yeah.
It's I think like my biggest thing. I didn't obviously play as much of it as you did, Scott, but like I just don't know if its style jives with me. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's cool, but I don't know. It feels more gimmicky than
Yeah,
most of the other things here.
I
So.
agree. I completely agree.
I think it's still a cool game. If you like music and rhythm
Yeah.
games, and if you have like a couple of friends to play it with, I think that's certainly
Mhm.
the best way to play.
And
Just
the
Shapes and-
online was pretty fun. I did have fun when I did the online matches. It was a fun game. I enjoyed it, but like you say, I'm kind of in the same boat as you are, Alex. It's like the aesthetic. This was cool to look at, but I haven't gone back since playing it. It was like, man, Just Shapes and Beats. That game blew me away. Like post the fact.
So I want to talk about Gargoa. Is that because like
Gorgoa.
Gargoa? Because it's the one that I think the game is ugly. I think
Yeah.
I think the game's fucking ugly. I think it's like really not visually like. I do not like the style of this game. This is why it's like I do not think we've set on the top 3. I think the game's really unattractive.
I think
Really?
that game style and the design and the conceit of it are married. And as someone who does like video editing and like just like visual editing, there is so much finessing. Like everything in that game visually and what it sets out to do had to be exact for it to work.
Mhm.
And man.
I like my thing is like I get the feeling that no one's really here to go to bat for Gorgoa. Like I don't know where you're at with it.
I think
George.
it deserves this so bad, but
I agree.
I don't know if you want
I
to.
think.
Like,
I mean, that's the one for me where it's like, this game, like
Silence.
I do not agree with this game. Like it's, I think the game is just like if we didn't see this earlier, like this game would have been one of the first games I got rid of. Like because it goes back to my point of like I think it does something different, whatever, and like, experimental, but like I don't think it nails it. Like I think it's just not like I do not visually enjoy looking at this game. Right, like it is like to me it's like that X Factor style. It's like is it unique? Is it this or that? But like also like is it visually appealing? And this
I
game
like
is like
looking at it. I think
I
it's gorgeous.
don't like looking at it. I like I'm like I want to okay, like I want to not look at this. Like I do not love.
It's subtle. It's
games
not
look at
like
all.
it's not gonna be bright. It's not, but it's
No, but like like, and it's not to say that like I don't appreciate this something, but just like I don't. It
doesn't do it for you.
Game. Yeah, right. It's,
Sure.
it's that simple, right? And that's why I said like, going in, it's like this is going to be a very subjective category, which is like
sure.
I think the game's not pretty, and so it's like,
But
well,
I think
then
mechanically,
so then it's like, well, it's not on my top 3 list, obviously. So then it becomes like literally out of every game left on the system we're still talking about, I would
the messenger. I don't see the. That's
mean,
how I feel.
I was
Messenger.
I just
20 hours in a row.
Swagger.
or, like-
It has swagger, but
I was ready to say goodbye to the messenger, and then Logan brought up Gorogoa. So like, I mean, I'll say this: like, I have not played Gorogoa, but boy, howdy, do I love looking at it. Every time I see that game in motion, I'm sitting here like, fuck. like that's like when you did that indie highlights, Jurge, and I watched it after it posted. I was like, I like at the end of that little segment that you had in the game, I'm like, what the fuck is this game? like I like audibly yelled that of like it blew my mind in a lot of ways. Like I get it though. Like I do understand.
Sure.
Like, I'm here to meet in the middle. So like
oh yeah.
we can revisit Gorogoa. I wanted to say goodbye to the messenger. I wanted to have my
I love
wife's
the messenger.
funeral.
I definitely would rather pick the messenger over Gorogoa if that's the.
I have
But I also, again, like, whatever. Scott, go.
quick question regarding Gorogoa. It was initially released for
Yeah, I
Steam,
know.
iOS, and Switch
I
last
know.
year, not this year.
Oh my god, we're getting killed with a technicality.
I'm just saying. I don't
I
know.
didn't
There's
know
also
this.
that.
I mean, it had ports this year, but it was originally released in December
I
of last
know.
year.
But
I'm
I
just
would.
bringing that to bear. I
it's
have
so
no
weird.
say. I haven't played it or really watched much
Sure.
of it, so I think the artistic of it, like, I wouldn't mind having some of the prints of like the screens on like my wall or like for decoration, but I haven't really watched or played any of the games, so I can't. I'm fairly impartial to this. I just wanted to bring that to attention because if we
gets
do
kicked off
add
a
this, it
technicality-
will be brought up probably in comments.
It's weird because like okay, so like we got to make a decision then because if we are all together as a group, as a unit, as a site next year, I want to play Ashen. I'm not. It's not. It came out too late, and I'd like to nominate it next year for something if I care enough, something like it because there's so
Yeah.
much stuff.
Best old
but-
game.
Best old game.
Best old game.
I
Yeah.
mean, like to be fair, like Hollow Knight was kind of taken off everything. I know that obviously had a bigger window, but like it got taken
Yeah.
off everything because it was a 2017 game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I would say probably if we want like a editorial director opinion, I did not know it came out last year. I would probably cut it on that
Came out
technicality.
December.
It would also help us avoid some contention and some feelings getting hurt, which I'm always a big fan of.
You know
I
what?
know that's
I mean,
the coward's way out, but
I already had my W at that game. Like Giant Bomb put it best style. So
really,
I'm
did it
fine.
win?
Yeah, it won. It got.
Did it really?
Spoilers
Yeah.
for Giant Bomb's
Jesus,
game of the year.
And it's
They
like
also
3
like
years later.
they record theirs in like November to early December, so like theirs makes sense for things getting pulled over. Ultimately, I think like if we want to have a conversation about Below and Ashen being more considered next year for things, I think we have the freedom to do whatever the fuck we want.
Yep, okay.
So like we could let this one go and revisit it as a possibility next year.
Yeah.
So for the record, Logan's wrong. Simpleton.
Definitely not wrong.
Peon. So just moving on. Sure.
All right, we'll
The
let
messenger
it
needs
go
to go, guys. I'm sorry.
on the
Damn.
on the technicality then.
I didn't mean to burst anyone's bubble.
No,
I
it's
just
fine.
thought I would bring it up
It's fine.
It's
because
important to talk
I
about.
didn't know.
It's an important thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to have some rules.
Yeah. And
Um,
somebody probably would have just called us out on it anyway.
We gotta have
Yeah.
some law.
To be fair, if they had
Be like,
and we had
well,
published this, and
2017. It's like, oh,
I would
well.
I would have just said
Sure,
whatever.
I-
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just like,
Fuck off,
man.
Trevor Starks. Jeez.
Yeah, he's out there. We know exactly who it.
That
It would totally be
that-
Trevor.
that-
Yeah.
It would totally be Trevor. I cut just shapes and beats, but here's the thing. Messenger's got a very hard sell on it. Like I think like you.
I love the look of it though.
I do love the look of it. I think
love the look of the mesh. I love the style of it. That game, like the swagger and like the confidence it has, and, like the tongue-in-cheek nature of it. Like,
but I don't think
it is like not. It is not necessarily doing anything unique. I think it is executing on what it's doing.
I think the execution of that is unique. Yeah, and
it's like Dragon Ball in that regard. It executes a style very well.
Mm-hmm. I think like if we're talking about like especially including music in this, the way it would switch between 16 to 8-bit and the way the music carries with it is like it at no point in the 16 hours I've put into that game was it not fucking awesome every time. And that is cool. I think it is funny. I think it has swagger. I think the writing in that game is top notch. I think by the time you get to the end of it, like you are more emotionally invested than you thought you would be. I think that's really cool. I think all of that is because of how stylish it is. I don't think you could roll any other kind of game up in that style and still have it be fresh and unique if it wasn't as well executed on. I don't think it's going to be one of the 3 best styles. I think like we got some like heavy hitters, some summer slammers. Am I doing this right, George?
Summer slammers.
Summer slammers.
In the winter.
Welcome
Becky
to the summer
Lynch.
take the messenger off, but it's visually.
It's great. If you haven't played the messenger, like I don't know.
Please
what to
play
tell
the
you
messenger.
anymore.
Please play the fucking messenger.
It's a very, very cool game.
It's
I've
really-
been really,
it's
I've
really
been
cool.
really turned off on it recently. But that's just me.
Most
would-
fun. God, it's so much fun.
Most something. I don't
If
know.
we're
man.
mentioning wrestling, it's time to mention
Are we?
Carrot Take.
Yeah, I mean, Jared's got to take here.
Where are we
Yeah.
missing?
Summer Slamming. I think I said
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
I was playing it this summer.
Event.
Jared says, I haven't played Return of the Obra Dinn, but there's no game that came out this year with such an instantly recognizable visual arrangement that it. I don't know what he meant grammatically toward the end there.
He's also
I mean,
played
but
it
he-
now
he-
since he wrote that, and
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, he has played it since then, and he seems like even more
very,
into it. So like, I think, but I guess obviously I'm somewhat biased as being the person who has played it here, but like I 100% agree.
I think Return is a lock.
It's
I think Obra Dinn
100% a lock.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. We've got for listeners, we're down to Donut County, Return of the Obra Dinn, Greece, Florence.
We haven't
Tetris
talked
Effect,
about Florence.
Or
and
Octopath either.
Traveler. Yeah, I mean, like Florence and Octopath are. I'm gonna just put this out here one more time. Do we want to cut Tetris Effect?
I don't think so. I don't.
Okay,
don't
I mean,
I'm just.
This is why I said
Not
earlier
that
when
style,
somebody was
that
like
game
the
is just
top 3 is
fucking
locked in, but like I don't think it is, guys. I don't think the top 3 is.
I
locked
just
in.
again like I'm giving
much
people the
messier,
out
much quicker.
if
I was
if
gonna
people
say-
feel more comfortable with that as an easy out. If not, that's fine.
not.
But I don't want you to. But I also don't think that you should have to just like sacrifice
Sure.
a game
I
that
mean,
is
Alex
so
O'Neill, I will
stylish that is such effective.
put myself at the
So
altar.
Stylish.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think again, with the perspective I kind of laid out at the beginning of this conversation, I would probably pick 3 other games on this list above Tetris Effect, personally. Which
But
is
one of them is gone.
yeah, which is very weird. I mean, I would still of the games on this list, I would pick 3 others above Tetris Effect.
I would cut Donut County before I cut Tetris Effect.
Okay. Do we want to cut down? Do we want to cut down a county?
I don't know how I feel.
I when you put the 3 being Grease, Tetris Effect, and Obra Dinn, I felt good about it, but that's just me.
Like,
yeah, I'm honestly in that same boat. But like those 3 were like bolded. I looked at them and I was like, "Yep."
I will
makes sense
say-
to me
Mm-hmm.
personally.
I'm good with cutting Donut County because Tetris Effect makes me feel some kind of way.
Hell
also,
yeah,
Donut
dude.
County made it far, so shout out to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like also like please play Donut County. That is
I
a
really want to play Donut
free
County.
video game that'll take less than an hour of your day.
Donut County's gone because no one is standing up to defend it. Here's the thing. We gotta sell this, George. Octopath Traveler looks cool, man.
I don't think it looks
No.
good at all. I really don't. I think
Octopath Traveler is like-
drawn art looks great.
I think
but-
yes, but I think Octopath
I-
does a great job of taking what's old and making it look new in a
It looks
fun.
like someone turned on a 3D effect in Unity. Like I don't.
Have
I
you
don't
played
know.
much? Like, have you played much of it?
I think the snow area looks awesome, but the rest of it just it just doesn't look right to me. That sounds weird. It just
I'm gonna pull Logan here. That game's ugly. It hurts my eyes to look
I
at.
think
I don't think
I don't
it's
want-
ugly.
I don't want to hurt, but I think the hand drawn art and the music, like you guys sold me on the music,
Yeah.
and the hand drawn art and like the story of these characters, like what I know about those characters in the
Mhm.
game, even though I
Yeah.
haven't played them, that stuff is cool. But like the world they make is awesome. But for me, just visually looking at it, like I think it looks
Yeah.
ugly.
For
I-
me, I think Scott will have a lot to say. I guess
Yeah.
so. I'll just chime in real quick.
Yeah.
Like I think it's we're getting focused on that visual like look of it specifically. Where I think like in some ways I agree that like it doesn't work in every instance, the visual style, but I
Mhm.
think in conjunction with everything else,
Mm-hmm.
like that brings like when it doesn't necessarily work from a visual standpoint, everything else brings it back up, like the integration of all the music, the way like the stories are told, like the characters and everything, like how it's basically all portrayed as this kind of like storybook, like playbook aesthetic and style.
Yeah.
Like it
The-
just like all of it like brought together in one cohesive thing, like I think brings it up.
The particle
yeah.
effects that fly
Mhm.
off of enemies when you hit
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Are
All of
fuck-
like definitely
Wow.
all of like all of the like super detailed like boss sprites and stuff look just like
Those-
insane, and
The
su-
sprite
are
work
so-
of
are
the
super cool.
bosses and just the monsters in general
they're
Yeah, they're
awesome.
blow
I think
me
I would just
away.
super detailed. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think the Gaussian blur is a little too high there.
yeah, that's I would agree with. Like there's definitely spots where it's like I feel like it's like that weird difficult thing of like I don't know if it's 100% a visual thing they're going for,
Mhm.
100% maybe it is it being on a Switch, and maybe there's a bunch of stuff going in the background of this game that might be visually taxing. I don't again, that's like a difficult thing to parse, but I do agree there's like spots where it's like I'm kind of just walking across this bridge and there's just a bunch of like all there really is like water around me, and I have this like weird kind of blur on like the outer edges of everything, and it's like I don't need that necessarily here, but in some other spots like in the snowy areas
Yeah,
the
the
snow
snow area looks good.
and some of
Yeah.
the like underground like caverns and dungeons, I
Yeah.
think it's really cool because it adds to that kind of like you're in this like dark underground and mysterious like kind of labyrinthian area, and it's
Mhm.
and I think it works in some spots but doesn't work as well in others.
Scott.
Yeah,
It's
good.
just this is what it was so good to see what Square did with Octopath, because you get so much for the old time RPG fans. You get that the pixel art, but it brings it in, like Mike and other people have said, sometimes it works better than others, but it created such a unique style that you can say had not really been seen
That's fair.
at all beforehand.
That's fair.
And I think it executed on it. I think it executed on it really well, especially for a first time to make a game this way. I love the music, the way the music and everything interacted in the hand-drawn art, and the style of how the stories were broken up, and
The hand-drawn art is beautiful.
the
It
world,
looks
the
gorgeous.
sprite work, even just the flat 2D sprite work, because like the monster sprites, and the character sprites, those were all just flat 2D images. The buildings themselves were the 3D parts, but like Snowfall and all the areas, or seeing the water kind of sparkle and glisten when you're in the beach town. It's just, I don't think it deserves the best style of the year up against Obra Dinn and Greece, but I think it at least I feel very strongly that it's at least one of the top three. Just the meshing of all the music and the transition with the music and the effects overlaid on attacks, and the style of the combat, how they did some really interesting and new things with turn-based combat, and the style of that, and the voice acting and presentation. It just all culminated in a really really strong visually, audibly powerful final product to me.
Man, I really wish I could meet you halfway there, Scott. Like, I love everything.
No, yeah, I hear you.
Main luck, gosh.
The best part about tonight's recording is like George is in the other room while his girlfriend is sleeping, so he's kind of talking very soft and quietly, and it's just he sounds so fucking depressed about everything. I love it.
It's just that he actually is.
He's so depressed. I mean, I get it, man. I'm here for you.
But like genuinely, because like I think the art of like the hand-drawn art, the music, the stories of those characters, and like I want to know more about that world. But I legit straight up look at it and I'm like, nah, I'm not, dog. I'm good. But that's
Like,
just me. That is just me here in this room.
I'll say this, like the thing, probably the only thing I like about Octopath Traveler is its style. Like I played it, you know, mechanically, like it very much does not speak to me. It is exactly what I don't like about older RPGs. Like I bounce off of it the exact same way I bounced off of Bravely Default, of like I do not want to play 40 plus hours of this, let alone like 90 plus hours like that game demands. But I love
Bravely Default is so good.
I know.
So
I like
no, but I can respect that. It's a
I'm like
aged.
You're fighting an uphill battle doing a turn-based RPG with me like from the get-go. So like it just, you know, it didn't click. But everything about that, the way that game looks, from the moment it was announced, I was in love with. Like it's a similar vein to like Tetris, of like it's taking what's old and making it new again in a really, really cool way.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of it. Like I don't know, like I'm the wrong person to say like I'm gonna fight for this to be on this list. Because man, I'm probably the wrong person to do that. But like, you know, I'll say this, like these 5 games that we have here, Return of the Obra Dinn, Grease, Florence, Tetris Effect, Octopath Traveler, 5 of the most stylish games I've played this year.
Yeah.
All
very good.
All of them are winners in my heart. Obviously, with that being said, we got to cut 2 of them.
And I'm also sorry that like this, I feel like these proceedings feel like Octopath Traveler, here's an L, here's an L, here's another L.
Yeah, there's some games that have gotten that, and it's always.
I'm used to it with being a turn-based RPG fan. Like, I take some kicks trying to defend them. It's like, no, but they can be
From
fun
Square
too.
themselves.
I know.
Square themselves.
Well, the Bravely team, which another kick. I'll take that, but yeah. See, when Octopath's better than Final Fantasy 15.
Damn, dude.
I mean,
What a mild thing.
That's probably
In terms of like gameplay and like music and stuff, I would take Octopath.
You're probably
over.
not making friends with Alex with that one. Like, you're not winning.
Oh, I'm not saying it's.
Burning some bridges tonight.
I'm not saying 15's bad. I liked 15. I'm just saying I've enjoyed Octopath.
Was that
It
guy
has
from Tekken?
challenge.
Did they give him his own game?
Yeah, they gave him his own
Finally-
game.
they
It's
finally
pretty impressive.
Noctis finally got his.
It took about 11 years to make.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we
it
got
took
there.
about 11 years, but he finally got his.
Pedigrees too.
Yeah, it is shitty because like I think Octopath is a cool game, even if it's like not for me. It sucks that it's like not necessarily taking home some wins in our awards, but like, you know, like we said at the top of this, like we are just six dudes, like, you know.
Yeah.
Be better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like we and I feel like even though it's not necessarily getting L's, we are like discussing it a lot, and I think in a way that'll make people appreciate
Yeah,
it, and like
I mean,
glad
we've
that we're
definitely
like
mentioned it enough where
discussing it.
have it on the radar
Like,
now, right?
there's plenty of games that I think are in that same boat as Octopath, in these like, oh, this is day 3 now, that have like been in our discussions pretty regularly, and I think we've talked about a lot, and like and showed our appreciation for them, and like ultimately I think like in our own way being the like, you know, pitching why people should ultimately play these.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
I think
know,
that'll really
like,
come into play too in day 4 too, where like both those categories, where it's like, but even with before them, where it's like 3 of you have played Florence now because me and George kept going on about it, right? Like Gris is a game that like for sure I'm gonna play as soon as like you get done with this.
Yeah.
Fuck off. I'm not playing it anymore. Yeah, but like Obra Dinn is a game that's on like all of our radars now because Mike just banged the drum on that, right? And it's like there are games that like we're already all kind of
Games, baby.
Yeah, games are
Yeah,
good.
actually, like
Yeah.
curious about it, or like have played or are gonna play because of these conversations. And I think Octopath can definitely get that kind of solace.
Absolutely.
Like a thing I want to reiterate that
Mhm.
I think we take for granted is like these categories are a vehicle for us to discuss
Mhm.
certain aspects of games, right? Like
Yeah.
we are ultimately cutting it down to a very limited selection of them, but like when we have these big long lists on each of these categories, whether it be music or style or best old game, like
Mhm.
they are excuses for us to talk about aspects of games that we all
Right.
really like. You know,
Yes.
it's shitty. Like it's weird because this is the first episode of our deliberations we were recording in a post Giant Bomb Game of the Year world where like they've changed the format, and all of the people that derived from their format are kind of like sitting here rethinking the way they
Yeah,
go
like,
about
oh,
this.
shit.
But you know that look at it from that angle of like best style is an excuse for us to talk about the style of a whole bunch of different games.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
pick a winner ultimately because Game of the Year is terrible and bad.
No, it's great. It's amazing.
Jarrett Green, it is.
But like you know, we like all these games except for Gorgo apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, I just bought it, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
All right, Logan, here we are again.
Yeah.
Florence.
Keep
is
in mind
here.
that you put a hard cap on us, Logan. So
I did.
We
We can
Florence
make it.
again.
I think the second category will take 20 minutes. Yeah. Florence is gonna be my pick for best style. This is out of every category. This is like the one where I think Florence is the most stylish game of the entire year. And I think stylish to me, as we've kind of mentioned a few of the games, is obviously tied to the music. But I think even without that, like Florence is every part of that description, where it is such a unique and captivating kind of aspect of that game, right? And it highlights a unique nature in both. I think the style of it goes into the music and the look of it, and also the gameplay and how they kind of all bleed together. They're all, I think, three different unique pillars of the game. Like nothing plays or looks or sounds like Florence. Actually, with all of them bled together, I think it's incredibly different from all of its contemporaries, including four of the contemporaries on this list. But especially anything else this year in games. And then also I think that in terms of executing its unique nature, I think it absolutely does it, right? Like, again, in the same way where I've become like the God of War like defender, even though I don't want to be for the site, I feel like I've increasingly had to become like the Florence defender, even though I think Florence has issues and flaws. But like I think the area where Florence does not is style. Like Florence exudes style, and it is such an incredibly stylish game. And it just like there is no aspect of what Florence I think does from a visual and like style perspective that it doesn't nail and doesn't crush, and is, as we talked about a few other games list that do things without having like a single word said, Florence also does that. And I think that it uses its visuals to kind of convey emotion, right? Whether it's like a muted gray for like certain scenes, like in a scene right after the break where it's muted gray is like the entire look of it, and you just walk in, and it kind of conveys that feeling of just kind of being lost and wandering a bit, to like bright, kind of vibrant, like yellows and blues for like other segments where it's big, kind of happy and uplifting. Like I think it utilizes colors in a really, really, really unique and effective manner, and like I can already feel my like partner on this hill in Jurge like already like backing away and just fucking like walking behind me and just like starting to run.
I'm
like,
saving my energy
it-
for something else with Florence.
But it doesn't matter, right? Like Florence, I think, is such a stylish game, right? And like it for me, it is easily the most stylish video game I played this year. It's not really a close runner-up, and like we got rid of Gargo, whatever the fuck it was called. I don't know, it was ugly. And it's gone technicality and it's fine. It's like I that hill's fine. That hill's already gone. But like
This hill seems pretty flammable. I mean, I don't know. It looks pretty dry.
I think Florence is incredible, right? And there's also a thing to Alex's point
rub
where
my
like,
foot on this grass. Maybe it'll start.
but it's also like, I mean, no offense to Scott and Octopath,
Or stuff in Malibu.
but like I think that the other four games are all really good, and like we obviously have 3 spots for 4 games or 5 games even with Octopath, and so it's like things are gonna get cut.
Mm.
But I think
just
Florence,
say for the record that I think Gorgoa does what Florence is doing better, but
I vehemently. I mean, like I think.
but we don't have
Gorgo's
to. We don't have to
ugly.
have it. That's the great.
We
thing
don't have to have
about
it,
it.
but I think Gorgo's ugly. But and also it's just whatever. But I'm not gonna do that.
I mean, like, listen, I don't want this to be like I think this is ugly. Like, I don't want this.
Yeah,
to
that's
be...
why I'm actually trying to avoid. I don't want to shit. I don't want to shit on the game. Shit the game. That's not even on the list anymore. I don't care.
I'm just giving
like
Logan shit. I really don't care actually.
I know. I
but-
just like it is toxic to the conversation as a whole.
But I think that. But I think that Florence is such a unique title. Again, like as me and George kind of talked about in various different categories throughout this year's Game of the Years, there's nothing really like Florence. Like honestly, like I feel like Florence in a weird way could also have been like on a like most overlooked games this year.
Maybe.
Because like I do feel like it coming out so early in the year has led to like people kind of sleeping it since then. It is such a. I think the fact that it's a mobile game too, right? And like. The game is really, really special, right? And it's not without its flaws, not without the issues, and it doesn't nail everything it wants to do perfectly. But I think that in terms of its style, it does nail that. It certainly executes the vision it wants to, I think, stylistically, what it's going for, right? Like, I think you can say a lot about Florence, good or bad, but I think you can't really argue with like its style and it nailing that execution and nailing the kind of unique nature of it and how it marries its gameplay and music with it as well.
I think that's one of the games that has been elevated because of Game of the Year discussions. Because I
agree.
like a lot of folks talking
I
about that
agree.
game more. So that's been.
I mean, certainly at our game discussions, that's been true.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll say, I'm going to propose again. I am in the spirit of compromise here, and I think
Alex is ready to fucking murder his baby, guys. He just wants to kill it so bad.
Florence hasn't taken home a lot of W's. Like I'm glad that it had our best like design level, and like I'm like in a weird split with Florence. Like I think it's one of those things of like I didn't end up loving the game. Like I liked it a lot and I didn't end up loving it. So it's like I'm not ready to fight for it, but like we've had a lot of passion from it, and I do think there is really nothing like it. So it does fit here. If I were to propose a compromise of Return of the Obra Dinn, Florence, and Tetris Effect, how would people feel? I know some of us wouldn't feel good.
I would disagree.
But it's a compromise. I'm just throwing a compromise out here.
This is an interesting compromise.
This is an interesting compromise too.
Here's the thing, like
Scott, you want to say something after Alex?
No, go ahead.
I'm with you, Mike.
In the same way that George just said, Gorgoa does Florence better. I say Greece does Florence better. And like in terms of like Greece, like Florence tells us ultimately is like it is about the relationship, but ultimately is about Florence's like finding
journey,
her journey and her self growth. Like Greece is that exact same story. I think it uses color a way more better and to send the messages it does than Florence does. I think like yes, it is a 2D platformer, but I think it uses its simple mechanics very smartly, the same way Florence does, and better. Like I just think like I liked Florence. I'm in this kind of the same camp that Alex just said. Like I don't think it hit me as strongly as you guys did. But I think in a lot of ways, Greece does a lot of the stuff Florence does. Just I resonated with the message it sent and how it did that message, like way better than anything Florence did.
I'm with Mike. I haven't played Florence. I'm with Mike.
And that's why I think it
I played Greece. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, you did play Greece?
I didn't play Greece. And I'm with you. I think Greece just looks stunning.
It's tricky because Greece does a lot of things in a very differently, but in a very similar way to Florence.
Thematically, it sounds like from you guys.
They're both very, very thematically similar games, in that like it is like that empowerment through self growth and like self discovery and like discovering kind of like, oh, the world around me like is also amazing, and like that's at least kind of what I took from Florence. Like Greece does that, I think, in a lot more interesting ways, where the world starts kind of black and white and bleak, and then as you progress, you find these colors, and they like completely change like the landscapes of the world around you, and like add entire color palettes to them, like adding like flora and fauna when you find the green, like adding giant oceans and underwater like scenes and
Yeah,
like
like,
it's six
it's
guys
just-
out here talking about the two games about a woman's story.
yeah, definitely. Like they're
Yeah. I just wanted to say it for the record.
absolutely like it is that it is that tough thing of like we're
Yeah.
six fucking dudes
Yeah.
being like talking about like a woman's relationship, and the other one is like kind of can also be it kind of is left open, Grease, in some ways of like it could be a relationship, or it could be like a mother and a daughter, or it could be like a significant other. Like it's kind of left a little
or it could be
nebulous.
yourself. Yeah.
Or it could be yourself. Yeah, like it's left purposely kind of nebulous at the end, which I do appreciate because it leaves it open.
You take away
it's-
what you want from that game.
So it's interesting for me because the compromise you made would actually be like the opposite of what I would have chosen. Like Grease for me is definitely a top 3. If you were like Obra Dinn, take that off and have the other 3 in there, I'd be much more confident with that, right?
I just know Oberdin's not going anywhere. Like I know
Yeah,
most of
like,
us
that's
are.
that's the thing of like, well, I mean, eventually we'll get to the actual top 3 itself, which we haven't even gotten to yet. But like that's where I would then shake it out.
But the thing is, like, I really like, I really like Florence for this because like the vehicle
I agree.
that it
I think
uses.
it is my style of the year game.
Yeah, the vehicle it uses, like being a mobile game, like it doesn't. I don't particularly like that is the thing, but it is true that it is nothing like I've seen.
Yep.
I think the format ultimately hurt it when I played it because I was just kind of going through it a little bit faster than maybe they wanted you to, and that's because that's how I use my phone and that's how the game uses its format very well. The other compromise I could say is Obra Dinn, Grease, and Florence, but like
That's what I don't like. Yeah.
That's back, baby.
but like that I feel good about those 3 games being very, very different from everything else. Like Octopath and Tetris Effect, I would both lump into the thing of like making what's old new again. Not that should disqualify it by any means. I'm just saying like the reason I would say Florence, Grease, and Obra Dinn is like, hey, these are 3 things you've never seen before. And when you look at all 3 of these things, you know exactly what you're looking at.
Yeah.
I think it's mainly for me is that Tetris is a more out there style and a more experimental and weird style, which I will always take over a very traditional style. Not using traditional in a negative way. Like I think I don't think it's crazy to say that Tetris is sort of kind of out there. Like it's a little abstract.
It's weird.
And so is Grease. Which is why I like those 2, and I think Return of the Obra Dinn, it's hard to deny its style.
Yeah.
But I still feel very strongly about Tetris. I think you take the style away, that game is just good Tetris. And hey, good Tetris is good Tetris, but I didn't like Tetris before this. I didn't care, and the style got me to play Tetris. And for me, it's a whole new world of Tetris for me. Turns out a lot of them are bad, actually.
Okay.
The Ubisoft Tetris game is not good.
It's bad.
Least style. That Ubisoft
The
Tetris
least style.
but that's how I feel.
I mean, like Mike, knowing that Obra Dinn is going to be on this list at this point, because you've got all of these little minions in your camp. How do you feel? Like, where are you willing to compromise here? Because like, I don't know if I'm ready to shaft Florence again.
I mean,
but like I'm split pretty evenly.
I mean, personally for me, like having like literally like when we did that first discussion, I hadn't played Florence. I literally like we finished that recording. I laid down in bed and couldn't sleep and just played Florence all then. I enjoyed it, but like I said it the day after that, like we just kind of like that first day for best design level, we kind of gave Florence out of like, we can't really make a decision, so let's just give it to Florence. And like that was that thing of like playing it that night after. I was like, I feel really good about giving it this one, and like I think it's well justified with like that win personally for me. Like my 3 would also be my 3 if you were to ask me would be Return of the Obra Dinn, Grease, and Tetris Effect.
That's where I'm at.
Those are my 3 because like I again like we said we had a kind of conversation about this before. Like I don't think there's anything wrong or bad or like Florence is cool and great message, but I think again Grease did its thematic storytelling that Florence does, I think, in a way more appealing and impressive, stylish way to me personally than Florence pulled off. Like Return of the Obra Dinn, like I'm just gonna say I think it wins this category.
I think so too.
And like Tetris Effect is like Tetris Effect, like even though with there's plenty of reasons I brought up and haven't brought up why I don't personally, it did not just stick with me this year. But I can't deny like Tetsuya Mizuguchi knows what the fuck he's doing when he makes a video game and like makes like an incredibly interesting out there thing when it's like man, I've like I said prior to Extra Life, I played Tetris 4 times in my life. That time in Extra Life being the 4th time, like I do not give a single fuck about Tetris or like most puzzle games in general. Like I do not care about like those kind of games at all. Like the first one to do that, like to make me like appreciate them more, was Lumines. And this in a way is like, it's that weird thing of like Lumines would not exist without Tetris, but Tetris Effect would not exist without Lumines. Yep. That's how I feel. And it's like that weird thing of like Tetris Effect is kind of that weird sort of like evolution of Lumines in a way. So like I can't not like appreciate it just for that alone because of my love of Lumines. Yeah.
And like I said, I'm like Mike, but like I don't care about puzzle games that much. I mean, I like puzzles, but I certainly don't love Tetris. And it was that style that got me to actually sit down and play Tetris, and the fact that Alex O'Neill sort of forced my hand.
I did.
And I'm grateful because, like I said, like I like Tetris now, and it's I don't know. Yeah. But we're talking about style.
It was just $40 sitting in my Venmo account, man. I didn't know. It's just out there. Quin.
Tetris is a game that like I've played Tetris Effect. I think I played the first level just like a little bit. But honestly, I think it, next to Obra Dinn and Greece, is the most unique game of the year. Like
you haven't played Florence yet, to be just for point of clarification on the record.
Yeah. I haven't played any of these games. I played the first level of Tetris Effect. Then I sat in Alex's studio, and me and him chatted and watched. Like I watched him play that game, and I fucking felt something when I watched him play that game. Like to quote like the best design level and the best like soundtrack and the level like city lights, like I literally lost my fucking mind.
It's true. It was like, very good.
Like I'm not even joking, and I do it in my write up because like it knows music history, and like I'm a music guy. I love music, and that level made me feel something that I haven't felt before in a game where I just like actually lost my mind. And I think that's part of its style, that it connects with everyone. You know what I mean? Like it connected with Alex, and it connected with Jurge, and it connected with me. You know what I mean? And like Mike has a connection because of Lumines. You know what I mean? And I think it stays on this list. I think it is Tetris Effect, Greece, and Obra Dinn.
And I would just say I haven't said enough nice things about Florence. I think like any piece of Florence art, I would hang that. Like I love. There's that one shot from First Date. Where
the kiss.
They're looking at each other. It looks fucking incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. Scott, how are you feeling? I know, dude. Like,
I know. Like,
everyone's talking about every game but Octopath.
I know, and for me, it would be Return of Obra Dinn, Greece, and Octopath. Like, I liked Florence. I liked the experience, and I liked the tale and everything of it. I feel kind of like how Mike does, that just from a visual standpoint, I think Greece does the whole like watercolor and drawn gameplay-esque style better than Florence does. I think Florence, in terms of the gameplay, I felt was the gameplay of Florence felt just very mobile game to me. It like I like the visual representation of what they did with some things, like the puzzles as like the dialogue. I thought that was kind of a cool trick, and how they symbolize like them becoming more comfortable talking to each other with the puzzle pieces growing. I thought that was a cool take. and I thought that was that was really clever. I like how they did that, but I like Florence as an experience. I think I would have gotten the same out of Florence had I like just watched a playthrough or someone or like if they had removed all the gameplay aspects and had it just be like a Flash movie. I think I would have gotten the same out of it had whether or not they had the mechanics. I think I don't
know if I agree to that.
And that's fine. And there were definitely parts, especially like Act 4, once they had started living together, that like hit me because that's where I am right now. Like I literally moved in with my girlfriend about a month ago, so a lot of the things that they're going through and the kind of butting heads and like finding places for each other's things, like that hit me, and I was like, oh my god, I can relate and all that. So that part really hit me, but I don't know if. Yeah, I liked Florence. I just don't know if I would put it there.
I think it's safe to say
it
that
feels
Octopath
like
wins the category. I mean,
no,
Octopath is the compromise choice here.
No, I don't want Octopath to win the best style. I don't think it does. Obra Dinn, it blows my mind what they can do with it. I would put it above Florence and Tetris, but that's just me, and I know I'm the only one. And like maybe it's because I haven't played as much Tetris. Like I like the visuals, I like what they do with it. But I guess I just appreciated and was blown away more with how they really changed kind of the 16-bit look and made it modern. Where I feel I've seen kind of neon trippy Tetris before. And that's just me coming from a place where I've only played like the first couple levels of the journey. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming in from more of a visual style standpoint. So I get
that president and Cooney has a gun. That's pretty stylish.
Add to the list. Add to the
He
list.
does.
Add it to the list. He does.
Add to
You
the
know
list.
what?
So
He shoots a rat in the head.
Yeah, he does.
You know what?
First 10 minutes of that game.
if I had to pick between, I know I'm the only one saying Octopath. So I'm theoretically, if Octopath doesn't get that third place spot, I would probably go Obra Dinn, Grease, Tetris Effect. I'd put Tetris over Florence.
Here's the thing: George's a coward who ran away immediately the minute I started my Florence defense, and so like we can get rid of Florence because George had immediately just no support at all. I could, as I could speak, just feel him.
I was here for you.
Sprinting away as far away as possible from my hill.
I was trying to compromise.
So Florence can in, and once Florence is out, then it's like, all right, cool. Let's give it to Obra Dinn under my strong objections, because I think Gris is better looking, but just be done with the category. We're hitting that fucking timeline. We're hitting this.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Because I do not think it's Obra Dinn, but like I don't even care at this point. Like
Here's
fine,
the thing.
it's good enough. I respect it.
Because I'm not ready to call it on this one quite yet, and we do have 19 minutes. How do y'all feel about Grease winning this category?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I would say. That's what my pick would be. That's what I would say.
I like Obra Dinn a lot. Obviously, I was like watching a little bit of video while we were talking about it, and Mike, you haven't had like your kind of you talked about it a lot in a previous category, but I'm a big fan of Grease.
Yeah, I would say Grease.
I I am too, as a person who reviewed it for our video game website.
Irrationalpassions.com.
Irrationalpassions.com or youtube.com/irrationalpassions. As the person who reviewed this, I still think Return of the Obra Dinn takes this category because it is like
time travel and stuff.
It's literally the like you read like every time I read this definition for best style, most unique or captivating style of a game, highlighting its unique nature, its difference from its contemporaries, and its execution or on said uniqueness. Like Return of the Obra Dinn is literally that. Like
is Grease not that same thing to me? Like that,
I think Grease is also that.
Yeah, it fits all those to me.
It is, but I think Obra Dinn is.
Yes, Obra Dinn, they are both that because like I was about to say its difference from any contemporaries doesn't even apply to both of these games because there's no contemporaries because they're both like these incredibly unique experiences. like but I think Oberdin takes it over there because it uses it is more so its execution on all of it, and it's captivating, like just seeing, like, you don't even see like the full breadth of like what stuff they do in these dioramas and just some of like the footage that's out there. Like, you don't like I don't think when I've looked around, like, I don't think there's footage of that scene where, like, spoilers, for one of the first ones that kind of blows open this whole thing, like the Kraken scene where it's this frozen diorama that you're walking around, and you're literally just seeing these like cool, like how the waves are done, how it's like tentacles are done, like how, like, even like there's people, like, and there's literally like, the whole thing of Upper Din again is like you're trying to go around through all of these dioramas, like you're basically finding dead bodies, are like where these people died, and then you're using this little compass to basically like time travel to this frozen moment at like the moment of their death, and you're like in this first person diorama of the scene where like all this stuff is going on and it's all frozen, and like that whole scene with that Kraken is just like, I've literally not seen a scene like that in any other video game, and how it uses like the space in, like, it is like
it tells a story through style.
Yes,
yeah,
it tells a story through style. Like,
No,
Grease, I love Grease, like, but it can also, like, it's also a very fun platformer and a 2D side-scrolling game. Like, it is that, and like the art style and the use of they literally got like this very specific painter and artist to do the stuff for this game. But I still think there are things in Grease that could have worked without the style that it has, where Return of the Obra Dinn literally could have not worked without any of its style, any of its use of it, any of its execution of it. Like, it would not exist.
I don't know if I agree that Grease would have worked either without its style. I think that's such an integral part of the game, but also, again,
it is integral. But I still think there are platforming sequences and like moments in that game that like would have still been like.
I mean, I think it would have still been a video game, but like, is the heart still there? Like, I mean, like an entire part of the story is like it being more colorful, and if that's, I mean, like, but again, also, let's just give it to Oberdin so we can get to the next category. Because I think Vroom's not with us, Alex. I don't think we're
I wanted to bring it up as a possibility,
I agree.
because like
I agree, but
I think, say my piece here, like, I think there is like that there's that reductive argument of like, hey, Grease is like an art house indie, like,
I would make the same case for Oberdin. I mean, Oberdin is very much like an arty house film with like what it's doing visually.
I mean, this is the most art housey category.
This is the art house category.
This is like picking straws here at this point. It's like picking like the little most nitpicky things you can possible.
Yeah, I think Grease translates to that more one-to-one, obviously, because it is like there are straight up like cutscenes that play out through that game that look like that. But in spite of that, like, there are highs and lows in Grease that like I didn't expect. Like, there's a moment in Grease that genuinely scared the shit out of me and had me like unsettled and really uncomfortable. And then obviously like there's kind of like where it tapers off, where I was like emotional, and it was all emotion like conveyed through visuals, right? Through the style that was like coming out of me, and I didn't necessarily immediately realize why I was emotional. Like, the message clicked after the feelings did, and like I think that is really cool, and I think that couldn't have been accomplished without Grease's art. I think them having one artist do the whole dang thing is really cool. It reminds me a lot of Broken Age, Double Fine Adventure, which is a similar thing of like one artist did all the base art for it, and everyone else kind of supported in that style. And I think that helps that game a lot. I just, I don't want it to, like, I would fight more for Grease if y'all feel really good about Oberdin, sure, but like I don't think it's fair to say that Grease, just because it has more straightforward video game mechanics,
I
is like not a contender for this. I think, like, if anything, Grease. I know, but like that's kind of what we reduce the argument to, and like it doesn't sound good. Like Grease is like one and one with its look, and the fact that that game looks completely different when you start it versus when you end it is also really, really powerful and really cool. I just want to say that.
Yeah, no, and I want to stress again, like, I reviewed this game for the site. I gave an 8.5. Both of these games are on my top 10 games of the year list, and they're pretty high up on this list. Like, they are both on there. Like, I adore both these games greatly, but like in a weird way, like a lot of the same things could be said that like these weird diorama moments of like obviously like the way you get into these freeze frame diorama moments are because somebody just fucking died in some horrible way. But then you'll go into these freeze frame moments again. There's like a lot of other moments that are like emotional and like scary and powerful in those weird same ways of like you'll go into the scene and like you'll just see a bunch of crewmates, and like some of them are obviously like, you know, your usual sailor looking type dudes, but sometimes there's just like immigrant families, and there's like this, I remember like vividly the scene of like, it's not even when the Kraken, but there's just like this horrible like thing going on the ship, and like the scene that stuck out me most was not like, you know, there's like obviously like the dude who dies in that moment, but I walked to another side of the ship and it's just a mother like in this corner of the boat, like bracing herself in front of like her two daughters on the ship, and like they're obviously like they're by themselves like in this corner, like obviously probably about to die in this horrible like boat accident, and like they're immigrants on this boat, and like all the other crewmates like are on the other side of this boat ultimately not giving a fuck because all this stuff's going around, like, and like there's a whole lot of like those emotional moments that are literally like literally like the only time you might see that in this one diorama of 60 like different murders that happen on board the ship, and like there's all kinds of stuff like layered throughout that game. Like, yeah, I see someone bolded it. Like we've already gotten to it. Like
Overden seems really cool and really.
I love both these games very much.
It's the game that like it just sounds so exciting to play in terms
of
like the witness, like, and I think like the diorama stuff just sounds so fucking fascinating, and like
it's incredibly fascinating. It's incredibly like dense, like because you like it's that thing where you're like you'll go into a diorama and literally not even realize the first time you go into one like the amount of information that can like literally tell you anything, like down to like the clothes that they're wearing, where they're like standing on board the ship could matter to like solving these different mysteries of like, oh, this I have like the map of this ship in my little notebook, and like it'll tell you like, oh, like this is where these members of the crewmates stand, so these dudes all standing here together in these suits tells me like these are these people, and it's like all of it's conveyed to you like through like its visual look and its visual style, and it's just, yeah, we can move on.
I want to say this, like of the categories, like best style is a personal favorite of mine. I think there is something to be said in a space where games like God of War, Red Dead, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey all sell the best in a given year, for example, or Call of Duty.
Right.
And they all kind of look very similar to one another. Obviously, God of War being more of an exception here.
Okay.
But like going for the same kind of thing. We're going for a very realistic human proportion character
I also,
models.
again, do just want to emphasize the fact that, like, I don't think that, because I think this conversation turned into that. Like, I think that going for a more realistic thing is not inherently unstylish. In fact, I'd argue that it can be incredibly stylish, and that I don't want to do disservice to games like God of War or Red Dead or anything else that do that look. Right, because like obviously, if this had been 2013, I would have died on the hill and brought the entire thing down for The Last of Us to win Best Stylish Games. It's like, there are games that I think, and like even like I don't want to do service to those games, and like don't do them dirty. Like there are games that definitely I think do that in incredibly stylish manners.
That's not what I was gonna say, but
no, I just wanted to emphasize that as well.
Like I think
because our top 7 was not those kind of games. I just want to emphasize.
My favorite thing about best style is like games that don't have like a character, right? Like, or games that don't have like proportioned character models, things like that. Like I love that kind of shit, and I love having conversations about games specifically like that. So like to God of War's credit, like it earned its spot like on this list, and we had a great conversation about it. And all of these games are like some of the things I get the most excited about, right? Like we barely talked about it. The Messenger, Below, God of War, Grease.
So good.
Like there's so many cool, stylish. Like people are finding ways to take things you know or don't know and deliver them through the mechanism of interactive media in a way that's just buck wild. And
Absolutely.
and you should go play some of these stylish games. So we
Play video games.
Play
Play
some
video games. We're back from a break, and George Cruz Alvarez.
We're in the light
I'm
now.
sad to say,
we've changed clothes.
He's no longer with us. It got brighter. It's a weird night.
Yeah, he's
It's
a,
true.
he's
It's like
a
a vampire thing.
yeah.
George had to get out of here.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a vampire. He just can't handle the light.
Yeah.
Best style got too heated, and we all got like way too sweaty, and we had to like just change clothes and
Take showers.
Yeah.
etc.
wow.
The works. Best use of world building.
So we're here
This
for
is what we're here for. This is an experimental category.
It
Is
is.
how I would say. Like I thought of this category idea. I think it's very specific to 2018. I don't think this would necessarily come back next year, or maybe it would get reimagined. But I think it applies in a lot of interesting ways to games this year. What I wrote here is the best mechanic, character, level, or aspect that served the purpose of building out the world and creating an environment that felt more lived in and alive. This is not something that is awarded to a game, which I think this is the first one of the categories we have that is that.
Sort of is still though.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's going to a game, but like it's not like Spider-Man
of the
wins
game.
best use of world building. It's like this part of Spider-Man is the best use of world building. So that's I like categories like that. I like focusing in on something a little bit more narrow. I tried to define it as specifically as I thought I could, and we'll talk through it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So right now, what we have for best use of world building is the backpacks and the Jonah Jameson podcast in Spider-Man. I don't know why those are necessarily lumped together, but I do kind of get it. The photo ops in Spider-Man, the shopkeeper in The Messenger, Red Dead Redemption 2's NPC chat options, Celeste's side characters, Monster Hunter World, The Rotten Vale, Donut County's Trashopedia, God of War's Mimir, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Pokemon roaming around the world, Iconoclast partner characters, Return of the Oberdin murder scenes. Is there anything missing from this list?
No.
Yeah.
Hard no. Let me.
I don't have anything personally. Like I added some things like literally like a day or two ago, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else. But I'm sure there might be some people watching and being like, like maybe thinking we forgot something, but I can't think of anything right now.
I can give a couple here.
Okay.
There is some of these could be some big ones. Just looking like at my favorite games from this year, there is the way weekly reset is implemented in Destiny 2 Forsaken. I think is pretty cool.
Or I would maybe single that down to the Dreaming City, specifically, yeah, how that's implemented.
I think that is a real big contender personally. There is this is not a super big contender, but still cool and well done. There is like the notes from your father in Moonlighter, which help kind of like lead a breadcrumb trail as to like these notes that you eventually find of like what the fuck's actually going on. And then I'm trying to think let me tell you about the Smash Brothers best use of world building.
Maybe the various quests and kind of NPCs you talk to in Sea of Thieves, because it's really the only thing that world builds.
Yeah, that's fair. And then the the kind of Time magazine articles strewn about in Detroit Become Human. Though I also don't know
That's
if
an
that's a
interesting
contender.
one. Yeah, that's an interesting one though.
But they're like building a very specific world
Yeah.
narrative.
That's a
around
really interesting one, actually.
that game.
Put that on, yeah, definitely put that on the list. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I just remembered Hitman 2 briefings before missions.
Okay.
Okay.
What? Oh God. Time magazines. It's just what I'm gonna say for the
Yeah,
Detroit one.
it's essentially what they are.
And then
Where are you adding these, by the way?
the bottom.
Oh, weird.
I got it out in there, Alex.
Okay. Is it not popular?
Yeah, it's not populating in my things. That's
Okay.
Yeah, it's showing up on mine.
Hit that refresh, baby.
refresh. Watching it live on air.
Live.
Oh yeah, there it is. Cool.
Anything else missing? Anything in Octopath that we should know about?
Not really. Like no single.
I mean,
It's the characters' stories, but I don't know.
I would say maybe like oh god, I'm blanking on his name because I didn't use him that much. But the scholars path action where you could like speak to people specifically.
Interrogate.
Yeah, like there was one character interrogate and another one like inquired, and they just basically like
inquired was Alvin's or the.
It was like the scholar dude.
The apothec. I think
Alpha.
No, his was interrogate because he was like a detective kind of thing. So he interrogated people.
Right. So inquire was
Inquire.
Alphin's, right?
Yeah.
So like I would say maybe like their
personal
path
actions. Yeah, personal actions. I would say.
Yeah, those two specifically, like their path actions could led to some cool world building stuff.
Cool. We've not really brought up this game at all in our discussions. I think it's going to bum people out a lot. So I want to make sure I mention, is there anything in Dead Cells that applies to this category?
See, the thing is, like, that's my only problem is of why I didn't bring up Dead Cells personally is just I didn't play enough of it to like see everything.
Yeah.
Because like, I can think of things, but like I don't really know if they actually led to anything because there's not like some weird. Again, I played probably up till like I think the second boss in the game. So like there are some things that are similar to another game on our list that did it, like specifically like you said Moonlighter, where you'd find like the father's notes. Like there were areas in that had like weird little things that could have led to something larger, but I don't know for sure. So that's why I didn't really bring it up here.
Okay. Question.
Yeah.
I don't know if this would fit. Would an expansion to a game count?
I have Destiny 2 in here, so
I would say Xenoblade Chronicles Torna the Golden Country would be a good addition then.
Is there any specific aspect of it that would fit this?
It fills in at the beginning of the main game. It talks about like this big war that's set everything in motion. Torna, this country that happens in this DLC, is the entire story of like how everything's set up and really fleshed out the world itself. So like the story, I guess, of Torna and the Golden Country would. But
I would say like I wouldn't feel good about adding the expansion as a whole. I would want to like narrow down into some specific aspect of it.
That's fair.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's good.
Let's talk about it then. We've got like a lot here. Does anybody have any particular place they want to start? Any highlights? Any lowlights?
Yeah, I'll just go with the Hitman 2 mission briefings.
Sure. Tell me about it.
So, I think this started.
I think a really interesting way to do it too is how it's different from prior Hitman briefings too, and like focus on that.
Yeah. So, in Hitman 2016, the mission briefings, they like kind of stills of the characters and show like shots, like panning shots of the map, and then like Diana Burnwood would give you details about your character, the target rather, and who they are and like what they like to do. And then there's a lot of like red then it gave you like a countdown at the end of it, like saying basically you have 2 days to do this, 48 hours. Hitman 2016, it doesn't do that. Instead, it shows the actual characters interacting in the environment, so you actually get a better look at who they are, what they like to do. And there's a lot more like sweeping shots, giving you a better like lay of the land instead of just like, here's the map. You know what I mean? Like here's the side shot of the Sapienza villa. You know what I mean? Instead of like, here's a sweeping shot of the coca fields and then the mansion and then the like the bar in the village. You know what I mean? It actually makes the world feel a little bit more fleshed out, and there's a little bit more details. I'm happy with it being cut, but I think it's something which is improved upon.
Yeah.
And I think the overall, like, each mission briefing has its own unique aesthetic to it, because it takes the colors from like that specific mission and it kind of has them in that just general theme and motif of that briefing. So
Yeah.
I think they're really cool.
I like that. I mean, I'll say like a thing that turned me off to Hitman 2016 was like, I think the presentation is a little flat.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing it's improved is really good. Like that makes me even more interested in Hitman 2. But yeah, I would say like it's probably not gonna hang, but it's cool to hear another little thing that they improved upon with that sequel.
Hitman 2 is just Hitman 2016 Season 2.
Right.
So yeah, which is what it was originally billed as.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't like such a complicated history around that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone?
I have a question. Who put the Monster Hunter World Rotten Veil on here?
I did, because I thought it was
what specific? I'm just curious. What specifically about Rotten Veil do you think was world building? Because to me, it just felt like it was a really cool level. I liked what it was, but it didn't. I guess I'm just curious what you saw.
So there's a cool kind of backstory with the Rotten Veil, which I honestly didn't originally know when I was playing through the level. It was just kind of after the fact. I was just kind of looking at Monster Hunter kind of like fan videos and stuff, just looking at stuff. And basically, the Rotten Veil is there's a kind of like a whole backstory to it that like players who have been playing the Monster Hunter series for a long time like found out, and that basically the whole Rotten Veil in and of itself is a corpse of a giant monster from one of the previous games. So in the there was a 3DS game that was, I'm not sure specifically which one it is, but like the final boss in that was like this giant like snake god monster thing. It was like one of the very final bosses in that, and it was like a huge like scaled boss even for like 3DS standards, and it was like wrapped around like a side of a mountain and stuff.
Oh wow.
And basically, yeah. So like the Rotten Veil itself, like there's parts in the Rotten Veil you can kind of go to and like see like basically like rotten parts of this monster, and people have like picked out different parts of it, figuring out like how this monster basically like fell under because the Rotten Veil is underneath the area you were before, the Coral Highlands. So basically like this giant monster like fell through and like caused that huge gash and like open pit that's in the Coral Highlands, and then like its rotting corpse then like formed into this area that you're in, and then like all the monsters, basically all the other monsters that are in there now are just like living inside its corpse basically. So it's basically like yeah, and I just thought that was like, whoa, that was super cool. Like, and it's like a callback to like only like the Monster Hunter fans would have noticed and pointed that out. And like I said, like I didn't even know that when I was first playing through it. I was just kind of like wandering through and being like, man, this place kind of fucking sucks because it's like poison everywhere. And all this bullshit. But then like I was watching, like I could try and find a specific video to show you guys later, but it was basically just like a guy theory crafting and like going to points in the map and being like, see, if you look at this part, this was like a spike on where this, like just like a tiny part of like that giant snake monster that we fought in the previous game. And I don't even think it's like the specific one, but it's like the same species of it. And like it's just like a bigger version of that. And I just thought that was like really super cool.
Has it been confirmed anywhere? I'm curious.
I mean, it's I don't think I've seen like 100% from like Capcom or anything, but it's like implied because like people are like pointing out like in that video they point out like very specific points of like here's like a very specific like big spike that's in the background that's like a part that was clearly like a part of that same monster, and you see parts where it's like you can see like parts of its jaws and fangs and stuff. Yeah,
Very
like
cool.
but there's nothing like
That is cool.
yeah. Ultimately, like it's probably the one on here I wouldn't fight for the most or the most passionate about. So like, I just wanted to shout it out because I thought it was super cool.
This makes me think that maybe perhaps next year we should talk about maybe doing like a best Easter egg in a game. Because I think that would be a really cool Easter egg.
Yeah, that's true. Like it does,
like that is a cool Easter egg.
Yeah, it definitely fits more in that camp for sure.
I was just curious though, so I wasn't sure what you were meant by
totally.
it, but that is very cool. I want to look that up now.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
isn't the Rotten Vale like the graveyard for monsters?
Yeah, it's that as well. Like it's basically also like a graveyard for elder dragons.
Yeah,
Like
that's where you fight the poison, necrofied bitch dragon.
Yeah, the one of the elder dragons towards the end.
The
And
little
I
dude
think
that
just
shoots
the
the
overall like background of the Rotten Vale is so cool, is
Yeah.
because it is like you have the Coral Highlands above it, which is probably my favorite area in
Yeah, it's
Monster
really
Hunter
cool.
World.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, which is like Coral Highlands. For those who don't know, it's like this bright blue, purple, like fluorescent colors, and you go and it's like poison and death everywhere.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
very
It's-
good juxtaposition.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because
Yeah.
you can see that transformation in like from the Coral Highlands into the Rotten Vale, where you like the Coral Highlands is obviously like you said, it's basically like an undersea like coral forest. You're not actually even underwater, but it's like it looks like that. It's like a forest of coral and stuff, and it looks super cool. But then
Looks like you're going through the coral reef, but you're above water.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and then you go into the Rotten Vale, and then when you start the Rotten Vale, you can kind of still see the remnants of kind of the coral reefy kind of highland stuff. But the further you get, like the more and more it becomes like, you know, poisonous pits and corpsey and like very death and yeah.
It's a very different environment in that game.
But it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Scott said, it is more like ultimately kind of like an Easter eggy type thing. So we can ultimately.
Man, Monster Hunter
it's cool
World is
though.
a good game.
It's very cool.
You want to cut it, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
All right.
There's some other good contenders on here.
Yeah, there's.
The shopkeeper in the messenger is very fucking good.
Yes.
His dialogue's hilarious.
I think like, you know, I will admit I'm probably like a little bit biased here. Like I love the messenger. I love the story behind the messenger. Obviously, we have some friends who helped like work on that game in regards to like PR and whatnot.
We went to the launch party where they gave us free booze.
Yeah, and like Thierry,
And they're awesome.
who's the director, who is the shopkeeper, he wrote all of his dialogue, is like my dude. I adore that guy. So like for sure, like I feel really strongly about this. What is cool though is so the shopkeeper has a story he will tell you in every level, and it is very like out there too. A lot of the times it is like a very interesting story, sometimes just for the sake of a punchline, sometimes it's like Aesop's fable type message to take away from it.
Hold on.
And sometimes it's just a joke, and sometimes it's like a really heartfelt message from Thierry to either the player or the other developers on the team, which is really sweet. But what is cool is all of his stories are actually in the world. Like there is some kind of physical embodiment of every single one of his stories in the world. I've only found a couple of them. The biggest one is he tells you a story about a child's parents who go out in search of paradise, and they never come back, and the child spends his whole life training to go on the same search and find his parents and find paradise. And then when he goes out, he finds his parents frozen in the ice, dead, and then he dies. And then you can find the parents frozen in the ice in one of the environments.
That's fucking cool.
Wow.
Which is really cool. So it's like, you know, these little fables all come back around to be part of this world as well. I don't necessarily want to completely ruin the messenger for everyone out there, but the shopkeeper stories also like circle around in a really fucking really good way.
Mhm.
But it's very good. I think
Cool.
I think it's certainly one of my favorite uses of world building this year. I don't know how well it's gonna stack up against like big boys here. You know, we got the Red Deads, the Spider-Mans, the God of Wars on here that certainly are kind of all about their world building.
Yeah.
And the Messenger is just an action platformer. But
Survive the first round.
Yeah.
I
was
would
gonna
say it doesn't have to
can
get
keep-
cut right
yeah.
away.
I was gonna say even as again, I probably the one who's played the least amount of it. Not just because I didn't have time to kind of
Mike hates the messenger.
Yes.
Yep.
yeah
Yep.
can burn a fire. No, I just haven't had the time to get back into it, and I played a lot of Metroidvanias this year, so it's just like I can't get through
get
another
it.
one of these right now. But
Dude,
from
I
what
get
from what you've said, and I've heard plenty of other places talk a lot about specifically the shopkeeper, and it does.
Shopkeeper's great.
Yeah, it sounds
Mhm.
very cool.
Absolutely
so I'm
fantastic.
looking
If we
forward to it.
did do a best shopkeeper category, he would absolutely win.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's very
We've
true.
had some good
Very
shopkeepers.
particular category, but yeah,
Yeah, it's a good
you're-
one.
It's a giant bomb category for sure. But
Yeah.
there's some good
Best shopkeeper in a side-scrolling action game.
Let's make it as specific as possible.
So
Yeah,
That
else
may or
what
may
else?
not involve ninjas.
I was gonna bring up and just throw out an idea because Alex brought up these big three.
Yeah.
There's basically we haven't brought up Jarrett's take, but basically like out of all of these, like Spider-Man, including Jarrett's take, Spider-Man comes up 3 times.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you guys are cool with it, do you want to think of a way to basically combine all of these Spider-Man into one thing? Or do we really want to nail it down to one specific thing? Because
my issue with that is that they're 3 very separate things. Like I would like to Alex's point from earlier, like the Backpacks and JJ podcast used to be 2 separate things.
Mhm.
And then they got combined into one. Like even that, I would argue like they're 2 pretty separate things. So like I think we should
Yeah.
definitely nail it down to like the best one. But like I don't necessarily think we should make it like a catch-all, like all of Spider-Man. These
like
3
like
things.
Spider-Man side stuff, because
Like,
that's kind of
pick one in particular and
Right.
make that the thing.
I feel
Okay.
like you could almost combine backpacks and photo ops and just put it as like collectibles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they are like the
I think
collectibles.
that would fit
'Cause even,
better.
like-
The JJ podcast seems very random to me to pair it with
Right.
the backpacks.
Because and even like I guess since I brought up Jarrett's take, if Alex you want to read it, but his I would also like in some ways I would pair that with the JJ stuff because it's similar
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to those
Yeah.
two, and like Scott said, the backpacks and the photo ops are kind of in their own camp as well.
Yeah, I'll-
Jared says, funny that Spider-Man is on the list twice for 3 different things, and they're all the wrong
It's fine.
answers. The right answer, of course, is the fake Twitter in Spider-Man, which is so on the nose that we should really be just be using that instead of the real one, which is funny.
Maybe
Uh,
like passive happenings, because they just kind of happen in the background and you don't actively go after them. They just kind of happen, so they just
What?
passively kind of
Well,
happen.
that's yeah. I
And
guess that's
then
for
with
like the podcast. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's for that stuff, right?
Yeah, for JJ and the fake Twitter, that could be like Spider-Man passive happenings or background noise or whatever. And then
bigger issue-
collectibles for the backpacks and the photo op.
The bigger issue for me is that I don't think either the podcast or the Twitter is the best part of the, I mean, again, like my pick would be the backpacks. It'd be my
Mine too.
Same.
I would
It's
do
like
the
I feel like
Yeah,
I feel like it's that simple. Like let's just get rid of. I mean, like it's the backpacks, right?
Yeah,
Like,
let's just- I would
I
say
do
let's-
I like the backpacks and the photo ops. I think are
yeah, like those are the two.
two-
The Twitter is to Jared's point, it is really good. It's funny, but it's also think of like to George's comment that he left. It's like it's a lot, and I've read clickers went
Yeah,
like this is too
yeah,
much. Like, this is
honestly,
just too
and like
much. I already have one Twitter to keep track of. I don't need a second one.
yeah, and honestly, from my perspective, I platinumed Spider-Man and played through all the DLCs, and I didn't look at the Twitter a single time. So
Yeah,
them
because
saying
it's
it's
a
like
lot.
like the coolest thing, I was just like, oh, like I like sure, like when I opened up the map, I saw like the little like pop-ups, but I never like actually like opened it up and like scrolled through it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I had no interest in looking at that.
Same.
So that's my perspective on that one.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
backpacks. I
Yeah.
think. Pretty.
Collectibles for sure.
I am with you. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff in Spider-Man. I like the fake Twitter. I ultimately spent all the time looking at it literally the moment after I finished the game.
Right.
And I went through and it's like chronological, so it's kind of going through the events of the story, and I got a lot out of it. Some of it's really funny.
Yeah.
It's cool because like I didn't like the side quest in that game at all. But the way that they kind of came back around in the fake Twitter of like, oh, like this person on the city is just like, yo, Spider-Man, just help me with this thing. It's fucking crazy, right? Yeah. The way that came around was cool. I wish you could post selfies to Twitter and have people comment on them.
That would have been cool.
Hold on. Is George like live editing our thing, but not in our actually call right now?
He might be.
Because we just added Time magazines just now, right? Like during this recording minutes ago,
did.
and George
George wrote boo.
Yeah. Hi, George.
I do want to say though that like Spider-Man had a lot of really kind of cool world building.
Absolutely.
And like whether it wins or not, like those guys in Insomniac really did a good job fleshing out the world itself.
I do want to hear more of these because like I said, I'm still like I'm not 100% on it being one of the three, but I could also see it being one of the three. Like I wouldn't be against it. I really I like the backpacks and like I think I was actually the one who put the photo ops. I thought they were like super cool and just like and how they like because there's even like there's like the ones you get initially, but once you like fully upgrade Spider-Man, he gets like an extra perk where you can find like secret ones, and even those are like even more like deep cut.
Shit.
They're like even more like deep cut ones that are really cool because it's like
I didn't know about that at all.
Yeah, like that's like those were like they don't even all they get they're not tied to a trophy or anything. Like all they get you is I think
backpack tokens.
I think there is a trophy for it for all photo ops.
Well, that's all the photo ops, but not the secret photo ops that are in there. Like for those
count to 100% though.
They you're right. They do count towards that. They get you like they get you another suit. I think it's like Spider-Man, and like he just has his mask on, and then he has like his college
the underwear.
No,
the college.
He has like his college outfit on, or it might be the underwear one. It's one of those. But
I think it's college, then 100% to the undies.
Yeah. But yeah, there are like a bunch of deep cut ones in there. Like I think I can't I did them kind of all like in one go because I was just enjoying swinging the city and finding those. Like I was enjoying it so much to the extent that I was like trying to get good at like putting the camera up while I was swinging, and then leap up and like slow mo, like take a picture of it where I could in the air and stuff. I was just having a lot of fun doing that in itself. But like I know like the one I can remember is like even though like it's got a bad rep now because of the TV show, but there's like from the Inhumans, there's like that big massive alien dog. Yep. There's just like a statue of it like in a street corner that like it's like one of those things where like I don't think anyone would have randomly stumbled upon it, or maybe, but like when I swung up to it, it was just there as like a big statue like in this little park, and you're just like, all right, sure, whatever. And then you take a photo of it and swing away. There's like I think Jessica Jones' apartment is one. I don't know if that was part of the secret ones or not. Like one. Yeah, Alias Investigations. And it's just like one of those things where it's like a little like you kind of have to search for it because it's like on the side of, it's just like one of those things where it's like you just look at a normal building and then all of a sudden you see a room, you can actually see like the full detail of like one of the rooms. And you just point your camera at it and pop it, and it just says, Alias Investigations for from Jessica Jones. And there's like a little bit more like deeper cut ones where like I felt like the bigger ones were like the cinematic universe ones, like Avengers Tower and the Embassy.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Embassy from
Black Panther.
The Sanctum Sanctorum or whatever.
Yeah, like a lot of them were like the bigger ones where like the secret ones were a little bit more of the like I guess like TV show like lower bar ones, I guess if you want to call it that. But I just like those. I just had a lot of fun because it combined like playing the game and like exploring the city with like finding little cool references that, and even like not just comic book ones. Like they had a bunch of cool like New York New York monuments too, like real world monuments and places you could actually go to in New York, like mixed in between those. So it was cool.
Yeah. Spider-Man's a cool game.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Pokemon roaming around the overworld.
Yeah.
Is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put that one on there just as a. I don't know if it ultimately hangs, but I just wanted to shout it out as a lifelong Pokemon, probably like easily one of my most favorite franchises of all time. Like,
Oh yeah.
like getting weird goosebumps just seeing like a fucking Pidgey and like a Rattata like walking around in the world with like other people and like interact like looking at the environment, even though like sometimes you'll get like dumb ones and they're like running into a fence indefinitely or whatever, like just seeing it for like the first time in an actual like full-on Pokemon game of like you're just wandering around this Pokemon RPG world and seeing all these Pokemon in the world was just like, wow, they've kind of realized this. They kind of realized this thing.
It makes it feel like a living, breathing world.
Yes.
It's the thing that's been lacking in Pokemon for so long.
Absolutely.
And like they've gotten better about it, certainly, especially like the DS ones to the 3DS ones, like of people just hanging out at places with their Pokemon.
Yes, there was a whole lot of that.
You think about like the anime and it's like Ash's mom just chilling with Mr. Mime the whole time, right?
Yeah,
Like
you don't know what's going down in that house.
Yeah, some fucked up shit. It's a lot of cocaine. But no, it's just like that goes a long way of like, oh, like people live with Pokemon. Like people live alongside Pokemon.
Yeah.
So like when you walk out into the world and just see it brimming with Pokemon, it's a really good feeling.
Yeah.
And for me, it also like this was the first Pokemon game I ever played where I was like actually trying to catch them all.
Sure.
So like I see a Scyther in the world, I'm like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
and it's just like running towards it.
And even like that like they capture like another thing that like it's kind of like a weird thing, but I think it was cool of like some of those Pokemon like are like threatening, intimidating to like see in the world of just like you walk into an area and there's just like a towering Onyx just like and just be like, holy crap, this like looking at like you and like another person and just like an Onyx just like kind of like walking around you and it like takes up half the screen. Like it was like effective in that way of like realizing like, holy man, these things are like massive and like could be like an actual threat and like it was cool to see as somebody who has played these games basically my entire life and finally seeing it kind of realized that way. But
it's really cool.
I will say it's cool. Like I haven't played the Let's Go games. I plan to next year. But it's so cool because I remember playing Emerald, and like the little like 2D model of the Pokemon. Yeah. And you walk up to it, and I think that's such a cool evolution to go from that to this fully realized like 3D space.
Yeah.
Where it's a person and it's a Pokemon, and then there's Pokemon in like the world. Do you mean? And I think it's fucking cool.
It is. And like the closest thing they had, I think the closest thing they came before this was in Heart Gold and Soul Silver when you had like you could choose one of your Pokemon to like follow you, and that's where like that.
I'm so glad that feature's back.
Yeah, and they incorporated like
always,
and like how they incorporate into gameplay where like certain Pokemon of certain size you actually just straight up ride. Where like you'll if you have a Charizard in your group and you choose them as your partner to fly, you'll just like fly over the whole map the whole time, or like if you have like a Snorlax, like you and your like if I was with a Pikachu, so it was like me and my Pikachu hugging Snorlax's stomach while he just like walked around. It was just like it was just jolly. Like they didn't need to do that, but they did, and it was. I think with I could be wrong, somewhat wrong with this, but I think with like a Kangaskhan, like they ride around in the pouch like with the baby Kangaskhan, and he like runs around. I think that is a thing, but I could be off by that. But it's just like they incorporated it like into that world in like a very fun way that's like definitely fan servicey, but it's
but it wasn't half-assed.
It wasn't half-assed. Exactly.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
This all being said, I don't think it's gonna hang.
Yeah, I don't think we have to cut it just yet, but yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, that's fair. What I do feel really strongly about is this Destiny 2 stuff. And I know like Destiny 2 is always like a point of contention.
Sure.
Like sometimes even for people that like it,
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like for the uninitiated, Destiny 2 essentially it has always and will always be like on a weekly reset, and they kind of took that and ran with it in the story of Forsaken in a way that's like kind of surprising and kind of shocking. The world that you access after you finish like the story of Forsaken is called the Dreaming City, which is kind of like Space Rivendell, for lack of a better comparison. It's very much like space elves and high fantasy.
Yeah, high fantasy, yep.
And like big glistening waterfalls and cool structures.
Yeah, lots of dreamy clouds and sparkling and.
Is it purple?
Yes,
it is. There's a lot of purple.
A lot of purples, a lot of like mist and dense fog and
bright
purples,
colors.
Bright colors, like it's basically like from high to low, but there's like a lot of purples. Like I vividly remember like every time we would zone in and we would get on our sparrows to get to the lady during that 1 week where you'd like you'd fly your sparrows to this like big like purple crystalline cavern that looks super cool every time, and you're just like, man,
Yeah.
pretty neat.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal looking area.
Yeah.
And the idea behind it is it's like the city that belonged to the Awoken, who are like the glowing bluish
Purple people.
Yeah, they're
Purple people, sometimes
they're,
purple.
for all intents and purposes, they are space elves, pretty much.
Yeah, they were like touched by the light in a way that changed them, and they look cool. And so essentially the kind of story, the post game story of Forsaken, is you entering the Dreaming City, figuring out what's going on there, because like the kind of main story, the Revenge for Cade 6 story, that you play through is really just setting up this kind of mysterious villain named Riven, and what she's all about. She's a Ahamkara, who is in the Dreaming City, which is a giant wish-granting dragon.
Yep.
I know,
Yeah.
it's very weird.
Awesome.
Destiny
lore
has
is all
changed
about.
a lot since the last time I played. We've
It's
got
very
space
weird.
elves and Dragon Ball dragons.
Yeah, it's a wish-granting dragon. It's Shenron.
The wildest thing is like it doesn't even look like a dragon per se, or like a typical dragon, but it's like a like I don't want to say Cthulhu.
Cthulhu-esque. Yeah,
I
like-
guess like from that fantasy, because like it's wild looking.
Yeah, it's very cool though.
I
So like you play in the game, right? You go into the Dreaming City, then you presumably get up to level and then play through the raid, right? It is like that is the story of the post game. By killing Riven at the end of the raid,
Yeah, it's the boss
you
of the
are-
raid, by the way. Spoilers. The
yes,
crazy
the
dragon.
final boss of the raid,
The dream dragon.
the Dream Dragon. You are
The dream drop dragon.
creating this loop, because when Riven dies, like her last wish is granted, which is creating this endless cycle of 3 weeks in the Dreaming City, where it's like this war between the Awoken and the Taken, who are like the beings of darkness, is like being continued until it gets worse and worse and worse, and then it resets, and Riven comes back to life, and the players kill Riven again, and the whole cycle continues.
Yeah.
Like the actual loop of what it is like to play Destiny is become the story of Destiny, and
Yeah.
it's really, really cool.
It's smart.
And all of it is told through like the environments of the Dreaming City, the way characters talk to you. All of it is kind of
Yeah,
fleshing out the world of Destiny in a way it has never
That's
been fleshed
that's what I
out
was gonna say, because like even though like it has gone past that 3 initial weeks, like basically like there's always like a reset of like activities you do in the Dreaming City. Like there's there's like story missions that there's one each week, and like the characters like even in those missions know that like they are stuck in this time loop, because like
Yeah.
you know I've somewhat regrettably loaded up Destiny 2 last night and played some Destiny 2 last night.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, and I did like the first week mission where you like run it, like you have to get those relics and you like run into that cave and talk to the injured lady, and she like goes away in a ship. But yeah, like you run up to her to like you like get loaded in the mission, you run up to her and she literally like her lines are literally just like you keep doing this mission over and over again, even though you stuck in the time loop, and there's like no use for like any of this, because it's like, and like your little robot friend, like the little like robot
Ghost.
friend's ghost, and you, like literally tells her just like, you need to have hope, please have hope, and then she just like warps away, and I'm just like, holy shit, This is so
Yeah,
dark.
it's gotten real dark. Like the characters all
it's-
know that they can't do anything to change their fate, and it's gotten
Yeah.
really fucking depressing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's like the idea of Destiny, right, being a video game about grinding and looping and doing activities over again. I think like really, it rubbed people the wrong way. Like the first time around with Destiny 1, it became a problem in Destiny 2 vanilla because like there wasn't enough sustainable content. The
Yeah.
way that they have like turned on that and totally changed like the conceptual idea of making that game and having people play it into like being incorporated into playing it, right, is really fucking cool.
That does sound really cool.
It's really
and yeah, it's really smart. It fits that game. They've made it fit their lore.
Yeah.
They've like it feels like they've been building to this in a lot of ways. Like the story of Destiny 2 Forsaken feels like a sequel to the story of Destiny the Taken King, which is the first major expansion for Destiny 1. Like it is picking up a lot of the threads that were left off specifically in that expansion, which I think rubs a lot of people the right way, because that is like peak Destiny for a lot of folks.
Mhm.
And I think that is why Forsaken is peak Destiny for me. And yeah, it's very good.
All right. I think it stays.
Yeah. Dreaming
at
City.
the very
Yeah.
least for now.
Yeah, that's very cool. I will say that the current stuff that's going on, I mean, granted, I only played last night, but it did not seem friendly to like people who have taken a break and are now jumping back into Destiny necessarily. But like, the Dreaming City is like, yeah, that's probably like the coolest thing. Like, as somebody who started with Destiny 2, and then like got back in with Forsaken, and then played through this, it's definitely one of the cooler Destiny things I've ever done.
Yeah. We could probably let go of Moonlighter at this point. I did want to mention it because it is cool, right? Like the
Sea
whole
of Thieves too.
Yeah.
the whole like dungeons in Moonlighter, like you're going through these doors to these 4 different dungeons. That like the story of Moonlighter is that adventurers used to come to this little town and explore these dungeons, and it made this town prosperous and wealthy. But then it got like too many people were dying in the dungeons, and it got too dangerous. So they had to shut them down, and then people stopped coming to this town. So you, you've inherited a shop, and you're kind of the grift, so to speak, of the shop is that you sneak into the dungeon at night, get some stuff, and then sell it in the shop during the day. And never sleep, I guess. At no point do you ever sleep.
Nope.
You can sleep to pass the time, but it's like if you do that over and over again and never die, you just never sleep. But yeah, so you're like sneaking into this dungeon, stocking your shop with the cool treasure you find in there. But then you beat the dungeon, you beat the boss in the dungeon, which kind of like lowers the danger of it. And then they start opening the other dungeons, and adventurers start coming back to the town in a big way. And you're learning, like you're finding all these notes about like where do the dungeons come from, like these kind of research logs of these scientists. It turns out like it's all weird alternate dimension stuff. But it's really cool. There's not like a lot of world building. I think Moonlighter is just like a really fun, cool game.
Yeah.
More people should play it. So anywhere I can mention it, I'm always down to.
For sure.
All right.
So,
are the quest givers in Sea of Thieves cool?
Well, it's like they're okay. I mean, you have like guilds, and it kind of fleshes out the world, and they've added more things to it. But compared to your Spider-Man, compared to the Destiny, the Dreaming City, and stuff like that, I just don't see it holding up.
yeah, I can't
With everything compared.
Yeah, I haven't played Sea of Thieves since it came out. Like I played like by like the first couple weeks, but I couldn't honestly remember. I remember there was like a lady magic, like a weird kind of witch lady that
Voodoo
had
priest, yeah,
like a voodoo priest or like a skull, and like they are very much like rare made these characters. Like whenever you see one and they like talk to you and like how you interact, how you like they chat with you and stuff, they are like very much like, wow, this was a character made by popular video game developers Rare. Like they very much have that vibe of them, but like like that's literally the only like world thing in that game. at
Yeah.
least when I played it, I have not like seen any of the add-on stuff. So I don't know if they've delved into it more, but yeah, I don't think it hangs with any
It
of this.
doesn't hang. Yeah.
I don't think the Time Magazine stuff from Detroit hangs either, but I do want to talk about it.
It's really
Um,
cool. Yeah, it's neat.
It is cool, like, it's a lot of like tension with Russia is rising. How is President Warren going to deal with this? Bees are gone forever.
This world.
It's like 2037, 2039.
Something
So
like that.
there's
Yeah.
no
It's
bees.
about 20 years in the future, roughly.
There's no
So
bees.
The bees are already disappearing now. We're
Bees
already
are
losing
gone.
now.
Yeah, it's basically like there's like a post-mortem on bees. It's pretty depressing. Like
Yeah.
the thing is, all of it's
True,
very
the true
depressing.
Start at
Yeah.
the end of the world. Yeah, it's actually
But
legitimate.
my bigger beef with it is like none of it ever comes back into the narrative of the game.
It's a weird one because like it's almost like the definition of building that world in the sense that it builds that large world up without ever really touching the narrative itself. Like that's where like you learn a lot about President Warren. So when like she finally does appear like towards the end of the game, spoiler alert, I guess. Like her character, like you already have some sort of like an opinion formed on that character and like who she is and kind of what her motives may or may not be. And so like that's cool. It does like some stuff like that, and like it almost was like set in like through lines for like if they were to make a Detroit 2, which I don't think they would, but like if they were like it sets about everything up for like when that would happen, if it is like the US Russia stuff or like President Warren stuff, like it's there now. But it very much does like build the world and doesn't really mess with the larger narrative that much. And it's all stuff you can miss, but it is really cool in how it does kind of build the world up. And like ultimately, yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's the top 3 best uses of open like world building thing, but like it is really cool. It's really neat what it does to just like establish kind of the lore of what's happening in Detroit and how it kind of what it's like in 2039 or whatever it is.
Because like it informs a lot of like what the feeling of that world is.
Yeah.
Like all Russia and the US are the biggest countries in the world at that point, of course, and like almost all of their military, like standing military, are androids. It's kind of like tonally kind of setting up what that is like for the world of like, sure, Russia and American tensions are high, but like they're just gonna send androids at each other and none of it's ever gonna matter. It's like it's they play with interesting things politically with it, but like again, there's just no follow through. And it makes it feel kind of pointless. But they tried something with that and it was kind of cool.
It's
It
cool.
makes me
I
feel
liked
like
it,
maybe there was a narrative thread that did tie all that back in together.
Again, because like that Russia and US tension is such a huge like recurring theme throughout those magazines where like that's why I'm like it almost feels like they're like teeing it up for like a Detroit 2 sequel because it is so prominent where it is just like they never really kind of get to like a conclusion on that. It just kind of ends. It's like this is definitely like either they had some sort of like chapter they focused more on that, or they had some other idea, or they envisioned they would get a sequel to this game. I don't know, but like it's a lot, and it's just kind of like
it's odd.
Ends,
It's especially because like the actual narrative of Detroit is so much smaller and so much more intimate and works really well for it.
Yes, I agree.
I guess it would have been cool to see like, for
A
example,
kind
like
of
an
global
article,
perspective,
an article like about the fucking dad or whatever, like if he survived, like
that's
an interview with him or something like that, like something that like tied back into this small narrative that they were making, but there's none of that, unfortunately. But I'm glad we talked about it.
Absolutely, it's really cool. It is actually really that's a really good kind of thing to remember.
They did
it's a
stuff
really
like that
thing.
in Indigo Prophecy as well. I don't know if I'm the only person here that played Indigo Prophecy.
I haven't played Indigo Prophecy.
It's been a long. I played
15
it,
years.
it's been a long time.
George, I believe, is writing, yo, is this that crazy stuff Brad talked about on GOTY?
Yes.
Because
yes, it is.
That should
We're live.
Probably win.
Well, there's a Jurge. There's a live Jurge take from wherever he is.
George take. George, where
This
are you?
just in. Live Jurge.
I mean, yeah, that is what he's talking about because they spoilers for. I think it's like I don't remember what
two.
category it was. Was it day 2?
I don't know what category it is, but they talked about it in day 2.
Well, I think they talked about it once or twice, because but I mean, that's just like the weird thing they did this year. But yes, that is the Dreaming City and what they did with that.
Yeah.
He talks about that.
Speaking of Jurge,
Yes.
we should do his first take.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, he talked about Spider-Man.
He's got a lot here. We can go through all of it at once.
It's a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, it is a lot of stuff. But I mean, I feel like we already covered Spider-Man, so maybe we should talk about his Spider-Man take.
He says on Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man nominees here are fine, but don't move me. I would even disagree with Jared's take about the fake Twitter. I think the fake Twitter has too much content, and I soon lost the excitement to check on it. But I think it's a super cool thing to be there regardless. I like generally agree. I think like we're kind of in the same boat of like the backpacks and the photo ops spoke to us more.
Yeah.
Maybe because that like makes Spider-Man feel like he is in a bigger Marvel world.
Yeah. It gives
More
you
more lived in world.
yeah, more
too.
lived in, and it like tells you like the state of everything and kind of everything in that world of
like Spider-Man is probably like
And builds his history. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
his history in the world from being Spider-Man for a number of years.
Yeah, and it's like we don't get to see him like chilling with Captain America, but like we get the vibe that like that's kind of like lost its splendor on him in a good way.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of grown up from
they
that.
they have met and are like quote like associated in some way. Like there's more jokes like that in the DLC too.
Yeah, it's like, you think about this dude running around literally taking care of all of Manhattan by himself. It's like when you put that in the scope of Avengers Tower is in Manhattan, and clearly like there are more superheroes in this world, like Daredevil is a thing, probably.
Yep.
It implies a lot about like a lot of people put their trust in Spider-Man, not just people of New York, but like other heroes as well. It makes him more important in that world. And all of that is communicated through those photo ops and the backpacks, and that's really cool. That's like a lot to infer from relatively small amounts of details, and I think I'm into that.
Yeah.
And I found the backpacks to be like really addicting to find. Like before I did most of the story, like I just went and collected all the backpacks. Like I got used to the swinging controls and fell in love with those, and then just all the little quips and things Spidey would say when you get a new backpack. I fell in love with. So
the backpacks and photo ops are the only collectibles I got in that game, because everything else I thought was super boring.
Backpacks are cool. I think I personally like the photo ops more.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
But it's just also like me is like Spider-Man doesn't really speak to me as a like I say my right off my game of the year list. Like I'm more of a DC guy, so all that Spider-Man history is like kind of just like flows over my head. But the more like because I'm into the MCU, and so like seeing the Wakandan embassy and like the Sanctum Sanctorum and all that, and all the Jessica Jones and like all that jazz, like all that stuff, really like I like that. You mean?
Yeah.
I like that they have like something for both camps too.
Yes.
Like I'm in both camps, like so I like the
Same.
photo ops, I like the backpacks, right? So, it's cool. Like they did a really, really good job with that stuff. Do we want to continue through George's takes?
I say we both the rest of them are like games we haven't talked about ourselves yet, so maybe
Okay.
do you think let's
Talk
have
about
our
Mimir.
let's have our chats first.
I feel like Logan, you probably feel the best about Mimir.
I mean, I think Mimir is the winner of this category. Actually, I mean that's I think Mimir and God of War is like to me like the definition of what this category is. And like really, obviously, I've talked a lot about how like God of War. I mean, I think collectively God of War didn't hit any of us the way it did. I think kind of the larger like games industry, I would say. But I think that Mimir is one of the examples, for me at least, where it's like this is such a great piece of building that world out, right? And like building kind of the lore and the mythology and the characters you kind of interacting with or indirectly interacting with, right? Like with his conversations about like Thor or Odin. And I think the way that it teases stuff for like potential sequels or teases things just out in general, right, is such a like great usage of Mimir as a character. To say nothing the fact that he's like also just like a legitimately great character in his own right, not just as a piece of
he
like
was
dialogue and like just like throwing out like kind of mythology, but as an actual character, he's brilliant. He's so fantastic, right? And like there are already like a ton of story people just like circling around the boat, just like until he finishes his stories and then like finally docking. But like that's just as true, right? And like looking ahead, like we haven't talked about it yet, and I'm sure we will, and we'll see how that goes. But like for Celeste, it's just as side characters, right? And so like I think that God of War and its various side characters all build out that world so fantastic, right? Whether it is like the brothers, the two brother like dwarves that you kind of meet again and again and again, or just kind of the ghosts you meet around that lake, the stories you kind of hear throughout that world from the various different characters or from the various different people, all kind of feeding back into that central hub of Mimir himself, fleshes out that world so brilliantly, right? And like me and Jurt had a like hour-long conversation about God of War with his article read that we did, and like the big theme that we talked about was like the mythology, right? Like how I think how much God of War has always respected mythology, whether it's Greek or now Norse, but in particular like how it finds ways to tweak them and to I think use ancient and classical mythologies to kind of reflect modern ideas and show how they're still embedded in them. And I think Mimir's stories and the kind of the fables in them do that really well too, right? Like it's just a great usage of that character and a great usage of expanding mythology and expanding that world and the characters and how it relates to Kratos, right? And how it relates to Atreus and Freya and like everybody involved in like Mimir's own story, right? And like how he got to where he is and kind of what led him there, right? As you slowly kind of uncover, because it doesn't tell you in one go like how he got there. He kind of reveals it over time, just what led him there and how he kind of fell out of favor and got in favor with Odin. And it's like his own arc is so great, right? And like I know Quin made a snippy quip before he came on air about like how like Dishonored whatever the fuck did it better, but it didn't, and it's so it didn't. And it's so
it was
well
a very different thing. I wouldn't even compare the two.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have compared them either, but the comparison was made, and like I think that it's such a brilliant usage, right? Like again, like as somebody's favorite game is The Last of Us, right? And like it's just story is talked about so frequently throughout that game, and like what it did to establish that world and kind of the tone and the theme of it. I think Mimir and the various stories that he does establish that world and what kind of place it is and the nature of these various characters, right? Like for me, the greatest thing and like compliment I can pay to Mimir is the fact that without ever meeting Thor or without ever meeting Odin, you have a completely formed picture of who those characters are, and that's largely because of his stories about them. It's largely because of his anecdotes about them, and it's largely because of his personal interactions and relationships with them and how he kind of relates those to you, right? Like we like when you finish that game, you know who Odin is and his motivations and his darkness and his problems and his weaknesses and his strengths, and the same thing can be said for Thor and his sons. And I think that's an incredible testament to the writing and storytelling capabilities of Mimir. So that would be my defense of that.
I completely agree with everything you said. The Mimir felt like a perfect kind of tour guide to the world in God of War.
That's a great way to put it.
And really opened it up. And just his writing, I thought the
so
voice acting and the writing of Mimir is one of the best, I think, performances of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely agree. Mimir was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, if somebody were to come up to me and say like Mimir is their favorite character of the game, I'd be like, I honestly like that's a hard argument to even argue against. Like, he's such a great character in that game, and like, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Scott just said. It's
I will say like Mimir is definitely one of the things I had in mind when I pitched this category. Like, he is like a vehicle for world building. Here, one like Alistair Duncan crushed it. He's the voice actor.
Yes,
I love his performance. Here's what I don't like about Mimir, and I do like I don't want to like I think Mimir hangs in this category. For me, he was top 3 like going into this conversation. Mimir is only ever doing the exact same thing to you to deliver his narrative to you the entire game, which is talking to you, which is like a bigger problem I have with God of War as a whole of like that game finds ways to just turn on exposition that are really uninteresting or really derivative of other video games. Like, I think it was really great in The Last of Us when those like pop-up conversations come up, because it was the first game that I played that did that. And it will always be better in that game because it was the first place I saw that. Same with like the Jeep stuff in Uncharted 4, where it's like kind of picking up and leaving off conversations.
Doubling back to him.
Yeah, it like of like saying we were talking about this thing, and then like continuing where you left off, so that way you as the player don't feel like you got cheated out of a cool story or a funny story or a cool dialogue moment. God of War does all of that exactly the same, and it doesn't do it at all differently. And
I disagree to that.
I think like they do like the narrative things where it's like, oh, we were talking about this, or like what were you saying about this story? Like all that feels so samey to me and really bums me out. I think like it works in God of War's world, and I think Mimir, being as genuinely likable as he is great. But it hurts it in the long run for me, as like some of these games did like use their environment to build the world out in a way that is way more interesting than somebody just literally sitting me down and talking at me. And that hurts it in the long run for me. I think what Mimir has to say is very interesting. I just wish they found a better way to deliver that to the player than a literal talking head. And like, I get it. Like, I understand what you're saying though, Logan. I just like at the end of the day that's where it cuts off for me. Of like, I was just kind of over it by the end of that game. Even if I really like the stories that you told me, but like the points that I will argue for you with are like very true. Of like, you never see Thor or Odin in that game, but Mimir sets such a great picture of it. But I like it more because Mimir has had so many direct interactions with those characters that like he will be the first to admit that his commentary is very colored by the opinion of those characters. And I like the parts of Mimir that are very much more reflective of his opinion versus him telling you like these stories. When he starts injecting himself more and more into his narratives, it gets way more interesting because Mimir is so much more likable as a character. But like ultimately, boy, it would have been cool to see some of those things versus having a talking head tell you them. And that will never not be a problem for me.
I feel like like Mimir is like the ultimate like setup character, like our exposition character, in that like he just ultimately he's just like exposition after exposition, explaining everything in the world just so they can set up something in a sequel or a trilogy. And like that's all he like. I liked it, like you said, what was his name, Alistair Duncan. I liked his performance. Like Mimir as a character overall was very cool. Like you said, like I like those moments where he kind of interjected his own kind of personal opinions on things alongside the information. So like I think even sometimes in the game where like he'll kind of tell you stuff and it's not 100% accurate because it was kind of his kind of lens on it. But I still think there was a lot of just like he would tell you stuff and I'd be like, okay, cool, and you don't really see it like brought into the world in an interesting way, because it's just like, oh, he just kind of told me this, so in God of War 2 God of War 2 on PS5, when this moment happens, I can be like, whoa! Like it felt like I already see those moments being made for this, like, and the character was just kind of a drive to do that, and like ultimately I think that'll hurt in the long run, because I could already tell like that's kind of all this character was doing with like certain parts of when he would explain stuff to you, instead of just letting me see that in the world and being like, oh cool, that's a cool thing to see, and then instead he has to like be like, let me explain this to you in thorough depth so that when you know, when it comes up in another game, you'll be like, whoa, he made that reference in that last game.
I mean, I strongly disagree. I think to me this is like literally like, I mean, looking at the definition now, this is the definition of this category, where it is the best mechanic, character level, or aspect that serves the purpose of building out the world and crafting an environment that felt more lived in and alive. Like I think the world of God of War feels like definitively more lived in and alive, because it's literally a character who's live and has lived in this world for centuries, sharing these experiences and showing these things, and like just telling you like about like how the statue was built. Like you see of Thor town over everything, right? And like telling you these character interactions, telling you how like we got to this place, and telling you like about the different characters' feelings and fears about Ragnarok, and like it makes a place that is so like distinctly alive, even as you're because like that main hub world that you're in is basically an abandoned wreck place with like like literally it's a ghost town, like it's just ghosts everywhere, no real like living souls other than the two dwarves, and so it's like it's no longer lived in that sense, but like he brings it to life in such a way to where like you can feel it be like this living, breathing place, and like everywhere you go and every kind of realm you travel to, like he's got stories, he's got things to kind of bring them alive as if kind of all been like infected and kind of have start to fall apart. Like he brings them back to life, and he brings back the kind of color and I think like nature of what these places once were like or still are, but have kind of been clouded in a way, right? And like he makes that world so lived in, like with like to me it's like without Mimir it's such a distinctly different game, right? Like you're running around in an abandoned town, but he brings the game to life in so many different ways. It's such a distinct marked change, especially from I think God of War 1, 2, and 3 to 4, right? Where like an interesting to me juxtaposition is the fact that like in 1, 2, and 3 you're in a world that very much is alive and like teeming with people that you just constantly see. You're constantly bumping into people, but it just kind of felt like there were people here kind of thing, and like it doesn't necessarily, it didn't feel alive in the same way. And like when you would go to a place that was kind of more abandoned, it felt abandoned. It just felt like people lived here centuries ago, but wasn't in the same sense. Whereas like Mimir here in that juxtaposition from 1, 2, and 3, like there's nobody really that you see, but it feels so like exponentially more lived in and more alive and more like an actual place than the prior God of War games did. And I think it's because of what he has to say. And like I don't agree that he's just like in like a character just spewing like dialogue and exposition at you. Like he's a character in his own right who again like I think feels so dynamic and so funny and so like quippy and witty and always has these kind of things to say and back and forth, how he challenges the other characters and kind of their expectations of certain things and like the players' expectations of like certain things and like established tropes. And like, yeah, I'll acknowledge that he follows similar patterns, or like his like that device follows similar patterns like The Last of Us and Uncharted 4. To name two games, but also like those games did it really, really great, and I think God of War does it really, really great in a unique and different way too, right? Where it is, I think, and like even the fact that he's like it's a literal talking head, it's such a great, funny, like awesome, like tongue-in-cheek wink thing at the players. Like it's literally a talking head, and like I think there to me is no better example of like world building and like establishing a place that is lived in and like real and has a kind of history mythology to it than Mimir and like what he does for God of War, right? Like that is to me like one of the best parts of what that game does so successfully. Like to me like the strongest compare like I mean like I don't know, you can go I guess, but like to me like the strongest like I don't know, you can go Alex, but
I was just saying like I totally get it. Like I like Mimir, and you're like a good way to put it is like that game would not be the same without Mimir.
It would not,
which is credence to like his likable personality. Like I think it just has like unfortunate setbacks of like the vehicle that it is. Like I think it does hurt it, right? Like the what it is hurts it. I think
I don't think that's true. Like at least not like I don't know. Like I don't know how you would want them to have done like fill up the mythology of that world, right? Yeah. Like how would you?
I think like the personally the stuffs of like Atreus kind of recounting these stories to Kratos were like better at building the mythology for me, because like we are getting like Atreus's very glass half full opinion, and then Kratos' very glass half empty opinion, and I like that contrast. Again, the things that I like about Mimir the most are when he injects himself into those stories, but I think that only happens half the time. And every time that doesn't happen, I'm like, okay, well, that was just them telling me about this thing. I'm not going to be so reductive to say like I don't think Mimir is just like the setup character. I think all of the ending of that game is the setup stuff that I really don't like. But personally, like I think living the things that you see in like the Dreaming City and like doing these things and being a part of the world that is building like is way more like builds out that world way better than somebody talking at you always for me. Like the part where like I am playing something and I am learning about the things by walking through the environment that I'm going in, or like the fact that me doing this over and over again has literally affected the world, is always going to work better for me. And like, for example, like the collectibles in Spider-Man, like him finding his backpacks and like telling you about stuff that he did, like builds that character and also builds that world out for me. But I'm tied into it because like I am playing Spider-Man. I like that character, and now like when I swing around, like I have information of stuff that he has done that I didn't before. Like it helps me come into that moment a lot better.
Yeah.
It's a balance thing though, because like I think Mimir does a great job. I think it should be in the top 3, and I think it is really well done. But like I don't agree that is the best use of building a world. I think the things I wrote here, best mechanic, character level, or aspect, are several different ways that you can do it, and Mimir is one of them. But I personally just don't think he's the best.
Yeah. Go ahead, Quin.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah,
go ahead,
with it, Quin.
We'll see.
Because I've been silent on this whole Mimir conversation.
If you fucking say Dishonored, Quin.
Let's be cordial here. I don't want anyone yelling at anyone during this conversation. Quin, say what you have to say.
It's in game sometimes, like when you find notes and you find audio, like audio logs or audio books or audio tapes. Those are fun ways to build out the world, because that's little exposition that you read and you take the time to. And this is where I agree with Alex, that Mimir is just telling you these stories. He is just that device of, I'm going to just read a book to you. You know what I mean? And like, not to reduct who he is as a character, because I like Mimir. But he is just like a vessel of, we don't want you like just not to, like, I don't know. I think it's an easier way to like send off that exposition and make it easier to digest.
I think Mimir is a clever answer to, like, I think everyone is feeling the fatigue on audio diaries, right? Like,
right.
Not The Last of Us, BioShock introduced them, and like so many games have. Oh, did we lose somebody?
Oh, we lost Logan.
Okay. So many games have tried their crack at like audio diaries. I'm trying to think like some like of the better examples, but like I think like BioShock's formula works so well.
Yeah.
Like
as you explore the world, it like kind of fleshes itself out, and you get your own.
What's cool is like a lot of them have different characters, right? Like you're introduced to a lot of different characters that way, and Mimir is like, hey, we're gonna try this, but we're gonna do it a very different. Excuse me, Jesus. Yeah. We're gonna do it a very different way of like. I am one character delivering all of this information, and like the parts where he injects his personality and opinion into it are the more interesting parts of it, right? Like it's an interesting answer to that same kind of mechanic that ultimately I think gets hurt by some of the same things. But like they tried something different with it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But like taking the tone of the conversation, like it feels like right now Mimir is one that people are gonna fight the strongest for. Destiny 2 is ones that we're gonna fight the strongest for.
I think they're both probably top 3. I would say.
Yeah, if we can just say like, hey, let's bring a third thing into this, and then like have the conversation out, like.
Yeah.
I know, like
through these other things.
Yeah, like
I would even argue Spider-Man's a strong third.
It's hard.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you.
Because so changing categories for a second here, because I legitimately don't know who put it on here, but I'm curious about it as a person who has played this game the longest. Red Dead Redemption 2 and the NPC chat options.
I put them on there.
Okay, yeah. So like, I would love to hear your.
Yeah, sure. So I just thought that was like, in terms of like Rockstar games and like some open world games in general, I just thought it was super cool to like, you look at most other open world games and like the way you like, I think like Spider-Man and like the other open world games we have on here, where it's like, you know, like the characters, you're just kind of doing whatever, and you know the kind of the people will like react to you, but there's nothing more than that. Like Spider-Man is like, hey, you can high five this dude, and they'll be like, hey, cool, what's up, Spidey? Like, you know, like that's like the extent of it, and you're just like moving through the world. Where I think Red Dead, like, it's crazy and weird, insane amount of detail where you can like literally walk up to any NPC in that game and like just start a conversation with them, and like it could be as simple as just like, you know, you walk up and you just go, you know, you're on your horse going down a road, a dirt road, and you just see a person on a horse and just goes howdy, howdy, and then you just walk past each other and you just go. But there's sometimes in that game where like I remember the first time it happened where like I was walking down the road and there was like there was like people on like a trolley like in their car, and I just went like howdy, and then like the passenger like just like started having a conversation with Arthur.
Yep.
And then it just like changed into like a full on like mission, and it wasn't like grand and like you know, all of a sudden it breaks down to this big dynamic cutscene. It's just like they're just talking back and forth, and they're like, well, we're taking this stuff up here, and we've been having trouble with some bandits. Can you help? You know, you look like a tough dude. Can you help us out? Okay, sure. And then you can like choose to just like help these random people on the side of the road, and then they do that. And it's just like, I don't think I've ever like I just thought that was like super cool, that it wasn't just like, oh, here's an icon on this map and on this map that I just go to and do this. Like, this just kind of organically happened by me, you know, just saying, hey, how's it going to these people? And then I helped them and they, you know, paid me and, you know, all the stuff like that. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it hangs with some of this other stuff, just because, like, there's other stuff like that in the game that's kind of like, you see the mechanics behind it where, you know, you see the people over and over again, just like, oh God, I got bit by a snake, please help, like on the right side of the road like 3 or 4 times. You know, and obviously if you're playing that game like 60 plus hours, that's just going to happen. But I just thought that was like really impressive, and there pretty much isn't anything like that in some other open world games.
I would say, yeah, like what Red Dead 2 does with NPCs is something I've probably never seen an open world game do before. Like, it's even stuff where it's like to your point, like just talk to somebody and like it leads to a mission without there being like a marker. Like you can just walk up to like I think of one particular where like I was walking through like the town of like the old South, and just like saw a guy on like a bench basically like drunk, and like just like he was screaming, like I walked over to me like see what's happening, like it talked to him, led to a series of missions like where we eventually found this guy's like whole past and like everything about him, and like this like this really cool arc, and then him being like an actually like really shitty fucked up dude, and like it was really cool, I think, how Red Dead even like introduces missions, right? Like there are a few like main like story missions where like to have you go talk to one character and you go like talk to them for like a minute and then get interrupted by like another like camper and then go on a mission with them instead. And like it's cool like how like it will misdirect you in a way in terms of like what you think about to do or like who you think about to talk to, and then have you go do something else. And like even like the funny things like seeing the same person get bit 3 or 4 times like the same snake is really cool, because like there's one moment where like a guy's like, this is the 3rd time I've done this for you, kind of thing. Like, we'll like literally say like I've done this for you 3 times now. Like you get bit again, go fuck yourself, kind of thing. Like I'm not saving you again. Kind of thing. Like that's a really cool way of being like, oh, like they'll acknowledge the fact that like we're doing these kind of things over and over again. Like the same snake bite guy, like again and again, getting bit, and like I like again like ultimately I'd agree with you that like I don't know if it's top 3.
Yeah. If this was
I mean, like we're at the point now where like surviving the first cut doesn't really mean anything because we're just kind of in it. But like, it is really cool how it does, like how it handles NPCs is better than probably any other open world game. And like if it was a different year, maybe it would have been something like in a top 3 category, because it is really cool and like just like how it introduces missions and how like you engage with people is really neat in that game. And like as somebody who like has been very vocal on the fact that I have lots of feelings and thoughts on Red Dead Redemption 2. This is one of the ones. This is a great actually thing, Mike, that I did not think about enough. Where it's like it is a really great example. Like one of the things the game does the best is how it handles its NPC characters. Is how it handles just that kind of simple dialogue conversation things that can lead to something way bigger, and like multi-part missions, even with like certain like Stranger Quest missions that you could have just totally missed if you just didn't walk over to a guy on a bench screaming bloody murder kind of thing. It's just really neat. And like even the stuff with like one of them is a like story mission with like Mary in the game, where it's like only one of those missions is a story mission that you have to do, and the other ones are all like optional side quest things. But like what it does in terms of like revealing Arthur's own personal like past and
Yes.
history and like
Mhm.
love in
Intense.
his life and like the pain and tragedy of his life is like so well done. Like they're all after that first one optional. You can just miss all of them and like the way that they all kind of start, where you're just like walking over to her and then she every time gives you the choice to just not do it. Be like you can just walk away if you want to and like fuck off. Like
Yeah.
it does really cool things like its side missions and quests and
Yeah.
kind of I think establishing that world.
Yeah, if this were like best use of like or like best like side missions or like a best
Yeah, Red Dead 2
either
definitely
Red Dead
right.
2 I think would be the winner because there's like they talk like I know like spoilers also for giant bombs, but they talk about one specifically that's like and spoilers later for Red Dead is there's a point in like there's a like a side quest mission you got. I think I don't think it's with Mary specifically, but it's with like this earlier in the game you save this like nun lady and like one of the side stranger missions. And then if you do that and you like do a couple of missions later, after you get to a certain point in the game, Arthur like contracts a disease and is basically spoiler, he starts slowly dying over time. And if you do those missions, you get to a point in the game where you meet her again and at a train station and like the scene they have together is
it's one of my favorite scenes in the
Yes.
entire game. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
might
one of
be
the
my
sce-
favorite scene. It's so
Yeah, it's like it's just a powerful thing because like you know Arthur is just like a he is kind of like a rough and tough like gruff like cowboy character, but like he has like his like tragic moments, but he just has this like extremely powerful scene with this woman where they're just like talking about their lives, where he's just like it's the first time like since he's contracted that disease that he's just sitting there talking with this lady about life and like where he's at, and he just for the first time like kind
how
of
he acknowledges that, right?
he just acknowledges like he just says to her like I'm dying, man, like and just like that's like this powerful scene of like
and
like,
that's the thing because he doesn't say it to anybody else either. And
he
that,
doesn't
and,
say
like,
it to anybody else in the game, and it's just like
so
this little interaction. Like if you weren't just to do like this random like side thing earlier in the game that was just like saving this lady and like your usual cowboy shootout save the lady kind of mission, like you don't get these crazy like impactful scenes later on.
And it's to me like that one scene in particular is so neat because it is almost like the perfect distillation of like the entire game's like theme and message all distilled into one scene right there. Like that is the entire game in that one moment, like what it's trying to say and what it's trying to like convey and like how powerful it is, right? And like how I think well it handles that. Also frustrates me the fact that the game couldn't always handle it like that well, but like it's such a perfect point moment. Like it like again, like if it was like best side mission category kind of thing or best side character, like Red Dead 2 would absolutely be in there. It's so well done. Like the game, that again, like that's such the frustrating part of Red Dead, where it's like the game is so clever, and then it's just like it's so not clever at the moment. But like how it handles side missions is so well done. Yeah.
But
I feel like those like more singularly divisive, like in itself games also have like they bring out the strongest feelings in you too, though.
Right.
Kingdom Hearts 2. That's what we're talking about.
Just started replaying it today. Critical mode playthrough.
That game is
boy.
all good
that
all the
can
way
go.
through. Let's talk about Celeste side characters.
Yeah, let's do that.
I guess I just don't know what you mean by this.
Yeah.
I didn't write that. I think George did.
Okay.
Oh well,
He
take
wrote-
off the list.
Well, I think he had a take on it. I think he did have
He
a take
had
on
a
it.
take in
He had a
here.
take. And I'll
He said, I played Celeste with the maximum assist options enabled, so I can say that Celeste isn't one of my personal favorite games of the year because of the platforming. I like it because of its cast of characters and the story each of them plays a role in. I know none of you were here, Mr. Oshiro, in his hotel. I don't know what he meant by that, but I'll
We're
assume
here
positive
for
intent.
Yeah.
I guess. But he's my favorite character of the year. I think I related to him more than I did with Madeline, and I find him adorable. Theo is a lovable idiot, and I think he serves as a great comic relief. My second favorite character of the year, probably. When I think back on Celeste, I think about those characters and how they do so much for the vibe Celeste is going for. They make that space and they make that world to me. That's interesting. It's cool that someone had, like, I think Quinn, you and I are in the similar boat of like Madeline was very much like who I jived with the most in that game.
it's interesting for me that George jived with Mr. Oshiro.
Oshiro's cool too. Like, he's a very tragic character. I think it's a bummer that it's not even like it's some of the mechanics of that level that are just my least favorite mechanics in that game. It's a bummer because a haunted hotel level, like in theory, should always be my favorite level of any fucking video game I play. There's this haunted hotel level in Super Mario Sunshine. It's fucking choice.
It is.
But like that
Put it on
that
the
level
list.
just didn't come together.
Yeah.
Best use
On
of
the
world
list, right,
building.
Mario Sunshine. Best
Yeah.
use of world building.
Use of world building.
Um,
The boo. Any haunted house or boo house in Mario.
I think
Boo's
I think-
Mansion.
Boo's Mansion.
I think the characters in that game are really lovely, and they feel really good. Like I even like Badeline. I think like she's a great altered dynamic to your own character. I don't know if like they build out the world in any way. Is I guess like that was
That
one
was
of my
the
confusions.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah, George's description, like, it sounds more like favorite characters or like favorite cast
Mhm.
nomination, and not. It does, at least from what he said, it doesn't really go into how they develop the world
Mhm.
or flesh that out. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
I will like to use the last ass half of the description.
Mhm.
Quote, that felt more lived in and alive.
Yeah.
That's what the side characters in Celeste do, is make that world feel alive and lived in, because you are climbing this mountain. You know what I mean? So there's not a lot of people that you encounter.
Mhm.
So like the first person you encounter is this old lady who tells you that you can't climb this mountain because you're weak. You're not powerful enough. Then you meet Theo, and he is just easily one of my favorite characters of the year. He's so well written. He is funny. He is relief, and he's a support character. Then you meet Mr. Oshiro, who is a weird character, but he does make that world feel more lived in because of his hotel. And it is a tragic story. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Guy builds his hotel on a beautiful mountain. It's all great. Then things just like go downhill, and then he dies in his hotel and he haunts it.
Mhm.
But he keeps pursuing like keeping the hotel alive and doing all of this. And that, like, I think the side characters in Celeste make that world feel more lived in than it actually like build out the world.
Now I have a question
Yeah.
regarding all these side characters. Like, I get what that means, but I'm just thinking if we apply that to something like God of War as
This
opposed
is what I was
to
gonna
just
say. That's why I
Mimir.
made that comparison earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
Like,
it's like that suddenly becomes to me, then it's like, well, all right, well, if we can just add like every side character in a video game, then yeah, all right, let's do that. Like, but that
Yeah,
that explodes. I feel like the category open here.
That's like my only thing. It's like, well,
Let's
I
add
would
every side
say
character in
that
Detroit.
if we can include all the side characters in a game as a best use of world building, I would say if we add all the side characters in God of War, that would make that argument stronger. Or I guess how should we balance it? I guess, like, is all side characters cool, or should we just limit? I'm
I would
just
say
curious
like
about
I would
that.
say we should limit it. Like I think like I don't think Celeste side characters works. I think
Right.
like unless you were like pulling from a
Mhm.
specific aspect of it, which George wasn't. I don't think like
Mhm.
if he had said like Oshiro in the hotel, like which I think is the thing he felt probably the
Mhm.
strongest
Yeah.
about. That like narrows this argument
Mhm.
and it speaks to like a world that it's building. So like I don't think Celeste side characters are gonna make it. I don't think like
It's not.
side characters.
I think it's a little too broad.
yeah, it is.
And-
It is a
And
conversation
more
to
to
have.
will
point
say-
for me, like to continue my own thing, is that like I don't know if I would agree that they built that world either, right? Because it's that thing. Like even when I read this first thing, is like Celeste has like 3 characters in the game that aren't Madeline. And one is the old lady that you see at the very beginning and then kind of sporadically comes back. And I don't think there's like a ton of depth to her. Then it's Theo and Mr. Oshiro basically.
And
And well,
And
I'm
Badeline.
not. She's not a side character.
Yeah, I
And
guess she would be main character.
yeah, exactly. And so like there are 2 other characters in the game essentially. And so it's like I don't really know if I think either one of like Theo doesn't really build up the world because in terms of like Celeste Mountain, because he's also his first time there in a lot of ways. For, like at least in how I'm viewing that. And so it's like, all right, then it's just Mr. Oshiro, and he does, but it's also like that section is just I think the weakest part of the game in a lot of ways. And so, and also because his story is so unresolved, I feel like it just kind of ends. Like there's not really any sort of like redemption, anything else. Just like you just leave, and like when you go back through it again, like on like the like chapter 7. You don't meet him again. You just kind of go through it. And so like, I think they sort of helped build out that world, but also like not to the degree of like any of the other contenders for best use of open world. And it's also just a really broad, like we kind of mentioned, Like,
Yeah,
just
I would
Clark.
bet that like George would probably recategorize it to something
It's
more
like
specific.
Mr. Share, yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
Scott, to talk about your point with Celeste and God of
Fuck my
War.
point, but
No, because I was originally going to say something about it.
Mhm.
Is there's only there it's the cast in Celeste is less than like 5, and the cast in God of War is more than 20.
I think I would just argue again, like that's also kind of the point,
Also-
right? Is that
my
like
my point wasn't necessarily that was my main argument was that it seemed very nebulous and kind of a bit
Yeah.
broad.
Yeah, I get that.
and that's the thing, like if you
And
just
that was
say
my
side
main-
things,
I think like
you
when
can
I
run
was-
away with it immediately.
if we said like
side character in Detroit kind of thing, is if you
Madeline
if you
like
just say it like that.
creating Madeline creating her own support group, like that would be something I would feel good about. But like I don't know if this is Celeste's category. I think like it's just not gonna hang no matter where we kind of try and finagle it. And I think that's fine. I think Celeste is very good for other reasons. I would say like what I do like about Celeste in its world building though is that it has all these different environments that it never tells you anything about and lets you just kind of wonder about them, and I think that's kind of cool. I cut it. It's gone.
Donut County, Quin.
Let's
Or
talk
Mike.
about personal actions first. Because
Really?
I feel like
I would, yeah.
I feel like that's another thing that we're probably gonna have to cut in the long run.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
Trashpedia is a longer conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
Quin's got three. I mean, not Quin. George's 3 paragraphs
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
George wrote a lot
I
about
think you're
Donut
right.
County.
I think you're
Yeah.
right about the personal actions. Like they do some cool stuff, but I think like it's ultimately like very small because like it's that thing of like it's dependent on what NPC you walk up to and react. Like some are just gonna be like, you know, hey, I walked up to this dog and it's just like
Yeah.
a happy-go-lucky dog. But then you talk to another character and they like talk and you walk up to this lady who's like a nun and she was like and she's like if you see her as when she's a nun, you just, like she'll just kind of talk about her backstory where she was like this like in a war and she was like a battle maiden in this army that protected like this town and has like finished her life of like war and death and has like become a nun. But then like this isn't if you basically like you'd find that out if you were Alphen or kind of Cyrus, that's his name, the mage. But if you talk to her then as like Therion the thief or I think it's Tressa the merchant and use their actions, you can see she's like still carrying like a bunch of weapons and stuff like that. So they do like a little
You can
like,
steal.
yeah, you can steal like all the weapons off this nun battle maiden or whatever. And there's like other people where it's like there's this dude who like alludes to like the true final ending of the game where he's like hiding behind this thing and he's like trying to like get the attention of this lover, a lady. But it turns out that lady is like part of like the true final ending and she's like this crazy thing. Like so there's like a lot of like little things like that, but ultimately it's like very small. So yeah, I don't think it hangs.
You get what you put out. Like the more you put in, the more you get out of it.
Right.
For sure. Like Mike was saying, there's a lot of really cool interactions you can get from utilizing those personal actions and talking to the town. One was you had to reunite or bring a grandfather to a town so he could meet or surprise his grandson. Cool little things like that. But in the world of what's here, I think it doesn't quite stand up to the rest of for the top 3 anyway. But it's definitely a cool thing they did.
Let's go through the rest of George's takes. How's that sound?
Cool.
Because it's going to go into the last couple of things we haven't talked about, save for Rock Island class. But so we talked about his Spider-Man take. These are George's words on Mimir, not mine. He says, Mimir's fine. Who fucking cares? I really don't feel anything about that guy. Get him out of here. He says, I think my 3 here are the Trashopedia from Donut County, Celeste side characters, and the murder scenes from The Return of Obra Dinn, with my personal winner being the side characters from Celeste.
Oh.
He says, well, sorry about that, George.
Yeah.
He says, the Trashopedia from Donut County is more than just some meme nonsense. It's really sharp and funny in a modern and specific way with an extension of the game's style and swagger. I honestly think it's some of the best writing of the year. The knock against it is that it's kind of completely separated or isolated from the things going on in the game.
Agreed.
I really like the Trashopedia. I think that could be a good third. for me as well, but like obviously just that's me injecting that right now. And then he says the murder scenes from Return of Obra Dinn are the game. It's kind of hard to make an argument against that. Understanding and discovering them are the main objective of the game, and I've heard that putting the pieces together is really something special. That being said, I haven't played Return of Obra Dinn, and while I'm excited to play it, I can also see this not being my thing. I've given my voting power to Return of Obra Dinn with these sections in mind when we decided the best style category, and I'm willing to recognize it here as well. But I think as far as I will go. I don't feel good giving it my W power when deciding what should win this category. How do you feel about Obra Dinn in this category, Mike?
I agree with George's sentiments. Like in some ways, I think ultimately it's like the style is where it shines best in terms of like the category. But I do think talking about like the murder scenes in terms of world building are like it's very much worth talking about. I don't like we're definitely gonna get down to it in the 3, but I think it's like he said, like the murder investigations are literally what are build that world, because like that's literally the like what you're doing, the like the whole main go through of that game of like it goes from like small little moments to like big surprising like out there or otherworldly moments, like I've kind of said in previous ones, where you have the first murder and opening scenes you see in the game. I guess there's going to be a lot of Obra Dinn spoilers here, so sorry folks.
Spoilers.
And I've already kind of talked about
we
a lot.
Said it at the top.
Oh yeah, we said at the top, and like even if this will be day 3, so I've already said a lot in previous episodes in some ways. So sorry. But like the first few murders you do in that game are literally the actual true ending events of all the murder sequences, and that is like you see a mutiny happening, and like people trying to break into the captain's quarters, and the captain like opening up the door and just like shooting a dude directly trying to run into the room. You see that murder scene, and you see the next scene where like the captain like spears a dude through the gut inside the captain's quarters, and then you go to the next scene, which is the captain sitting in his chair with like looking at the bedroom inside the captain's quarter, where ultimately you find out to be that's his dead wife, who like died in that Kraken incident that happened, that you see in the next scene after it. And like you literally just see him sitting outside and shooting himself through the back of the head, because all the things that transpired throughout the rest of the game were basically kind of his doings, and like what ultimately like transpired to have this Kraken attack them and have all these otherworldly events. There's a lot more like crazy other events where like that are pertain to this crew, and like they brought people on that had this weird old like artifact that they find out is cursed, but people are like kind of don't realize it's cursed. They just think it's this like super wealthy, rich, powerful thing that they can try and bring back and do evil things with. So like that causes all this conflict on the ship, and then makes all these other insane events happen. And it's just like there's that aspect of it, but then there's just like scenes where like none of that stuff, like you see that stuff playing out, but then there's like other small moments of just like the crew being together, like at a table eating, or like there's a little wood workshop where you see like there's a the woodworker on the ship and his apprentice, and you like see them like you see kind of like the like even throughout the diorama scenes you see them kind of coming together like as friends and partners in weird ways, and it's like all these little moments too, they're like sprinkled in there that you just didn't expect. Like I think I talked about in the last time, where you see that like in the events of like that Kraken scene, you see this big a battle going on, and like people like spearing tentacles and getting like torn in half, but then there's just like you can just go to one corner of the ship where it's not even near where any of the battle's going on. There's just like a mother bracing her daughters like in a corner, and it's just like all these little moments like spread throughout that just like make it so much more impactful than you'd ever think it would be. But yeah, I think ultimately like style is where that is, because the look and the feel and all the ways they portray this stuff is through its style and its visual look and the music cues and like all of the effects and the like aesthetic of it like are all done with its style. So I think ultimately that's still like the category it deserves that W, like George said. But like I said, I think it's still good to talk about it here because it is really awesome.
Are you okay with cutting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me about Iconoclast.
So yeah, it's another one I put on here. I think it does a little bit fall into the nebulous nature of Celeste. I think the one thing I think it has over Celeste in some ways is that I specifically called them out as partner characters because there are plenty of side characters that you find in things, but like the 3 characters I'm supposed to be talking about are characters that actually like partner up with you in game, and like they will like fight alongside you in boss battles, and they will be they're kind of, I guess, like maybe you can also consider them more main characters, but you're not necessarily like, there's very few moments where you actually play as them though, so that's why I guess I didn't really think of them as more main characters, because like the moments that stuck out are like well, I'll just go through the 3 characters. There's Mina, who is kind of like becomes kind of your best friend throughout the thing. Royal, who's kind of this like like that's kind of entwined with this like religious like faction that's kind of trying to take over the planet that they're on. And then there's Elro, which is the main character. Her name is Robin, the character you play as. That's her brother. And I just think how they're intertwined with everything is really cool and like builds out that world. Like Elro is the first character you meet her brother, and he's kind of like he's kind of always looking out for her. Robin, your main character, and like, you know, Robin, the character you play as, is ultimately trying to follow in her father's footsteps, where he was a mechanic on the planet, and mechanics are outlawed on the planet, and are like to the point where like they are hunted down and murdered. Like, and so like she like is so adamant about doing it that she becomes one, and is like still like embraced by her brother, and it's like, hey, she's trying to help us out and do all these things. And like the opening of the game is like you go kind of through like the tutorial area where you like kind of learn how to play and do all the stuff. Then you go and meet your brother, and then you are like chased down by the religious occult people, which like you ultimately kind of find out they're more like a military power, and they're just kind of using the religious kind of themes to like kind of control and like kind of like take power and control over like just the people and rule them with an iron fist ultimately. So like she comes and like helps you like return power to your brother's home, and then like those people show up and like destroy his house and like throw him.
Before we get into too much spoilers, I'm just curious how do the partner characters influence this? Like this story. I'm just curious because the story sounds very cool, but I'm not hearing much about what specifically the partner characters are doing this.
Yeah, I guess ultimately they just add not only to like the story of the world that you're doing, but they also add to like the gameplay aspects, because there's parts where you play as Mina and she just has like a gun, like a shotgun. There's parts where you are fighting together like against like a boss, and like all the characters are used in their own way. Like one of the first boss battles is like you as Robin and Mina fighting together, and just kind of overcoming this, like you're trying to escape this prison, and you kind of come together and like use your abilities and in conjunction with her to kind of like free yourselves. I think it's just there. Like a lot of it is ultimately like the story aspect of it, because that's very heavily in Iconoclast, like what it is. So I ultimately I don't think it hangs with these other ones, because that's like I'm the only one who's played it ultimately. But I think it's just they
dabbled with it.
Yeah, but I think they intertwine the character, like those kind of side characters that partner up with you throughout the game, back into the story, and with like how they play alongside you in gameplay. Really cool ways.
Yeah, Iconoclast seems like a cool game.
It's awesome.
I just got it before it goes off PS Plus. So.
Hell yeah!
I will say, Mike, that boss battle when you have to be with Nina, and like the underwater labs.
Yeah, I
hate that thing.
I mean I like some of the boss battles are definitely some of the standout moments in that game. But that one's just there's some challenging bosses for sure.
We are down to 6 games here. Spider-Man Collectibles, Messenger Shopkeeper, Donut County Trashpedia, God of War, Mimir, Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, Pokemon Roaming Around the World, and Destiny 2, Dreaming City, and Reset. are we ready to let go of the messenger and Pokemon roaming the world?
I'm ready to let go of Pokemon.
I'm ready to let go of the messenger.
Yeah, I'm ready to let go of those too. I have a question about Donut County with the Trashopedia.
Same here.
Also, same.
And I haven't played it, but just like looking up and researching like what the Trashopedia is, like how is it different from just like item descriptions? Because it just seems like it just says what, like, I guess I'm just curious how it.
I think it's just that it's very well written and well done.
Yeah.
Like it is how it is very much in the same style of that game is why it works and why it's great.
And it's like the reason I like the Trashopedia is because it's not like just a general description of the item. It is specifically BK's description of the item, which like say what you will, but like I think it's fine with building out the world, but it gives you like his perspective on items, and I think that's really unique and it's really different from a lot of games because you like say you get like a cabbage, right? And like you play a game, it'll tell you this is a cabbage. But if you play Donut County, you get a cabbage. It's like this round green thing, and it'll have a wittier description than that, and that's why I like the Trashopedia.
I do too. Like it's probably not gonna be the one, right? Like
I don't
know.
Like I like the writing, and I'm reading the descriptions on Trashopedia on the Donut County wiki, and I like the writing, the clever writing and everything. And I guess I'm just from not playing it, I guess I just see it as witty item descriptions and not I don't know how to make that gap, and it's probably because I haven't played it. I don't know that the jump from just an item description to
more to the point for me is the fact that I don't know if somebody didn't like what Mimir did. This seems like that, except for instead of somebody just telling it to you, you're just reading it. It seems the exact, but if that's your grief with that, it's just somebody like exposition dumping a lot of stuff. This seems like exposition dump that you just read. And again, I don't agree to that critique of Mimir, but if that's a critique you made about Mimir, then I don't see how it's any different here.
I think,
and this one seems less alive because it's not an actual. It's just you're reading the things. That's what he's telling you stories.
It benefits from the same thing that like Mimir benefits from, of like the scope, the perspective it's coming from, right? Like, and that helps make things feel alive. Like I think it's dismissive to say it's just item descriptions, but I also don't think it is the strongest of the four here. Like I think it is the weakest of the four here, and I don't think it's gonna hang.
And I don't mean to be dismissive. I'm just I don't have, and I definitely want to play at some point. I'm just not seeing, with not having played it, to me it does seem like that. But I definitely I'm hoping that when I do play Donut County, I'll get this better. I was just curious if you could explain it to me, because that was what
the way I think it is. It's like Obra Dinn, right? It's part of the package, right? You get it with the style and with everything else, and it goes lengths to work for it.
Yeah, and all the items that you suck in through the hole, typically I found that it goes in order. So if you get the smaller items first, it goes like chronologically size. Yeah,
that's cool.
And I think that's part of the fun with it.
Ultimately, though, we don't think it's gonna hang.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't sound like it.
I don't want.
Okay.
Yeah, I just say let's cut it because I don't want to get into me shitting on this game because I personally like. No, I wouldn't say Trashopedia specifically, but I don't like Donut County did not land for me at all. Like, I'm sorry, but I think it's not that good.
Okay.
So
I get a very Earthbound vibe from these descriptions, though. Like it's kind of that same tongue.
It's fun.
Like I like tire gloves for your car, like little things like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Top 3 games though.
Top 3: Spider-Man, God of War, Destiny 2. How do we feel about Spider-Man winning? Because it's something that we all like.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Destiny 2 sounds good too.
Yeah.
Destiny 2.
Everything but okay, yeah.
Honestly, I'm in the same boat.
Because I don't know if anyone's like
those two a lot.
super against Destiny 2. I know we've got contention around God of War, and I know it's not going to win. Like enough of us feel strongly about that. I know that sucks, Logan. I do get it.
This should make it Spider-Man.
Yeah, we all have good vibes about Spider-Man.
Sure.
I like Spider-Man.
I really want to check out Dreaming City, like when Forsaken gets a bit cheaper, checking that out because
Let me
that
know, man.
sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
I've got a sickness. I'll go back in for you.
Oh,
Ordered
thanks,
it up
Boo.
yesterday, so already ready to make
Spider-Man
mistakes.
collectibles, the backpacks, the photo ops, all go a great way to making that world feel more alive. And that game's really cool.
Yep.
Mhm.
I think all three of these games are really cool. I think most of the games we talked about are really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And video games are good,
Yeah, man.
actually.
And talking about video games with friends is really cool too.
Yeah. So this is the end of day 3. Tomorrow is the last day.
We made it.
And
The big one.
we've been recording these pretty far ahead of time. But we're kind of in the thick of like what the kind of final stuff is going to look like, and I hope people are digging it. So day 4 we're going to be talking about best game that might have been overlooked, and also Rational Passion's top 10 games of the year. I mentioned it once before. The top 10 games are. I'm saying this just like as like this is going to come out the day before this to set expectations up, right? Top 10 games are 1 winner and 9 runners up. No order. We are not ordering the top 10 list, which I guess like that might disappoint some people. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it when we get there.
It's gonna be.
but-
I think it's gonna be very interesting because instead of making little numbered compromises, we all have to make one big compromise.
yeah, I think
so that's gonna be interesting.
ultimately, I think it'll have us walking out of that conversation having said more positive things than
Yes.
negative things. Like
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
was my hope, right? Of like, sure, picking game of the year is going to be a little tricky, but like, I don't want to say like, yeah, well, this game is ugly, so it's number 9 instead of number
Yeah,
8. Like,
right.
I think like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff is
exactly.
just toxic.
The nitty gritty
Yeah.
would just get tedious and
Well,
like,
Absolutely.
there's 6 of us, and George will be back for tomorrow. Don't worry. I hope you've been enjoying this. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Quinn. Thank you, Logan. And thank you, George, wherever you are, you ethereal being. I've been Alex. We'll talk to you tomorrow with more screaming.
yeah.
Always screaming.
Always be screaming.